Chapter 61. Seeing this, the third palace master's expression suddenly changed. Only then did he realize that Xiaoyan was playing with him again. Anger rose in his heart. He struck out with his palm and sent the huge black ruler flying. Immediately after, he turned his head to look behind him. Without any hesitation, his body shook violently as he flew backward. Boom! The huge black ruler was sent flying tens of thousands of feet away by the third palace master's palm. In the end, it violently smashed into the ground. The force that it carried also created a pit that was thousands of feet wide on the ground. A gray fog rose and covered everything. At the bottom of the pit, beside the black ruler, the space wiggled and a white-clothed man's figure appeared. It was Xiaoyan, whom the third palace master had turned around to chase after. Xiaoyan extended his hand and pulled out the heavy Xian ruler from the ground. Seeing the 3-inch deep fist print on the ruler's body, Xiaoyan could not help but frown tightly. Some anger rose in his heart. This heavy Xian ruler was given to him by Yao Lao. It contained many of the feelings that Xiaoyan had for Yao Lao. Now that he saw the heavy Xian ruler in this state, Xiaoyan could not suppress the anger in his heart. Fortunately, Xiaoyan did not let this anger get to his head. Now the heavy Xian ruler was almost scrapped. Although there was anger in his heart, the most important thing was that in the face of a great disaster, how to solve the current problem was what Xiaoyan should be most concerned about. The matter of the heavy Xian ruler could be solved sooner or later. However, if he did not leave now, there would be no more chance. When Xiaoyan thought of this in his heart, a cold glint flashed across his eyes. Immediately he kept the heavy Xian ruler into his storage ring. His body flashed and disappeared once again. After a few breaths, a sharp sound of rushing wind sounded. Immediately, the third palace master's figure appeared at the bottom of the pit. Looking at the mark left behind by the huge ruler after it was pulled out, the third palace master's face under the mask trembled in anger. He let out an explosive roar and surrounded Xiaoyan again. Behind him, the 7 figures also helplessly chased after him. Everyone in the city was shocked when they saw the 9 figures that disappeared and reappeared in an instant. Usually they wouldn't even dare to think about such peerless experts. But today 9 of them had appeared in front of them. How could they not be shocked? After the 9 people completely disappeared from the sight of the people in the city, everyone began to discuss. The city that was incomparably quiet a moment ago became noisy once again. Roar! Xiaoyan! You actually dared to play tricks on this hall master time and time again. This hall master will definitely take you down today, and then let you have a taste of a fate worse than death. At this moment, Xiaoyan was using the sky extinction steps with all his might to fly in the direction of the ancient savage city. 10,000 feet behind Xiaoyan, there was a cluster of black fog in a human shape that was giving close chase. Behind it, 7 figures with the same color were also chasing after them at an extremely fast speed. Moreover, the distance between the two of them was also shrinking at an extremely fast speed. It wouldn't be long before Xiaoyan was intercepted by the third palace master. Seeing this, Xiaoyan couldn't help but feel anxious. However, there was nothing he could do. He could only try his best to fly forward. Seeing Xiaoyan increase his speed again, the third palace master let out a cold snort. However, he immediately let out another explosive roar. His body shook and his speed suddenly increased to another level. He shook off the 7 people chasing behind him and intercepted Xiaoyan in front of him. Xiaoyan also frowned tightly at this moment. He felt anxious in his heart. If this continued, he was afraid that he would really be in trouble today. Just as he was thinking in his heart, a black figure suddenly appeared 1,000 feet in front of Xiaoyan. This person was the third palace master. The third palace master paused. His eyes were filled with an endless murderous intent as he looked at Xiaoyan. He let out an explosive roar from his mouth. Xiaoyan, where do you think you are running to? Today you have toyed with me time and time again. Today you must return with me. Once your matter is settled, I will definitely torture you to death. Hearing this, Xiaoyan's charging figure slowly stopped in the air. His eyes were extremely solemn as he looked at the third palace master. After a few breaths, the other 7 people also caught up. They surrounded Xiaoyan one after another, leaving Xiaoyan with no way to escape. The 7 of you, give it to me. Use your most vicious Do skills to viciously beat Xiaoyan. I want to exhaust his Do Qi and take good care of him. The third palace master looked at Xiaoyan as he repeatedly gave orders from his mouth. When he said the word, take good care, his tone was especially heavy. From this, one could tell just how great of a humiliation Xiaoyan's actions today were to him. Although each of the 7 people had different thoughts in their hearts when they heard this, they still raised their hands. Numerous complicated seals were formed by the few of them. Among them, the seals in the hands of the old flame demon ghost were especially different. Once the seals were formed in the hands of the old flame demon ghost, the space around him began to fluctuate. Waves of water-like ripples spread out, appearing incomparably powerful. Xiaoyan's heart was also incomparably solemn when he saw this. The eyes of the third palace master hardened when he saw this. He looked at the old flame demon ghost with some surprise, but he did not say anything. At this moment, the old flame demon ghost had suddenly become the focus of everyone's attention. The Do skill that his hands were forming was the man-class Do skill that he had used back then, the mysterious underworld soul-devouring palm. Although Xiaoyan was unable to see the expression of the old flame demon ghost due to the cover of the mask when this skill was used, there was no need to think too much. Xiaoyan was incomparably clear in his heart. Given the strength of the old flame demon ghost, it would definitely be extremely difficult for him to use this man-class Do skill. If someone were to disturb him, it was likely that he would be seriously injured at the very least. Xiaoyan acted as soon as he thought of this. His body moved and rushed toward the old flame demon ghost. The third palace master emitted a cold snort when he saw this. He flew forward and blocked Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan panicked in his heart. He spread his right hand and threw a palm toward the third palace master. At the same time he cried out explosively from his mouth. Yellow spring palm. At the same time the seals in Xiaoyan's left hand changed. Before his palm collided with the third palace master, Xiaoyan once again opened his mouth. Yellow spring divine anger. Mao, Mao, Mao. Bang. The third palace master's spirit shook when the yellow spring divine anger was used. Immediately he became absent-minded for a moment. Although it was only for an instant, it was already sufficient for Xiaoyan. After sending the third palace master flying with a palm, Xiaoyan once again threw a palm at the old flame demon ghost. Yellow spring divine anger. Yellow spring palm. Yellow spring finger. After a set of Do skills, Xiaoyan finally appeared in front of the old flame demon ghost. At this moment, the Do skills in the hands of the old flame demon ghost had finally reached the end. Xiaoyan threw a palm forward. Just as the old flame demon ghost's scarlet eyes were about to attack Xiaoyan, a palm struck the old flame demon ghost's palm. Bang! A black-colored energy storm swept apart. The third palace master and the others were sent flying tens of thousands of feet by this energy storm. Finally, they violently smashed into the ground, forming a deep pit that was 1,000 feet wide. Even the old flame demon ghost himself was unable to escape. However, the strange thing was that Xiaoyan's figure was not among the people who were sent flying by the storm. Chapter 62. The black energy storm swept across the land and covered half of the sky, causing the entire sky to suddenly darken. 8 black human figures were blown away by this energy storm. All of them were seriously injured. The third hall master climbed up from the ruins. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. His face twitched under the mask. He took a deep breath of the air that was filled with the smell of blood. His body moved again and he appeared in the sky. The third hall master scanned his surroundings. All he could see was a cloud of dust. The third hall master forcefully endured the waves of pain that were emitted from his chest. He waved his tattered sleeves violently and the cloud of dust was blown away. When the cloud of dust dispersed, 8 huge pits were revealed. A black human figure could be vaguely seen in 7 of the huge pits. The third hall master ignored it. Instead he scanned his surroundings again. His eyebrows under the mask were tightly knitted together. How can this be? Where is Xiaoyan? He was the closest to the flame demon back then. Even the flame demon was seriously injured. How can he be fine? Don't tell me that Xiaoyan was directly killed by that attack? Doubts suddenly appeared in the third hall master's heart. However, he was also somewhat helpless. He could not find Xiaoyan's body, nor could he detect Xiaoyan's aura. As such, the third hall master did not know whether Xiaoyan was dead or alive. Moreover, he actually began to worry in his heart. Xiaoyan was dead, but his body was nowhere to be found. This made it difficult for the third hall master to report to the third hall master. It was likely that he would suffer when he returned. Xiaoyan was not dead. However, the third hall master was unable to sense even the slightest aura of Xiaoyan. As such, Xiaoyan was nowhere to be found, and his corpse was nowhere to be found. This caused the third hall master's heart to become even more worried. Humph! It's all the flame demon's fault. If I can't find Xiaoyan, I will definitely kill you. The third hall master was furious and began to blame the flame demon old ghost. However, just as his voice sounded, the expression under the mask suddenly changed. He turned around and looked behind him. At this moment, a white-clothed human figure slowly appeared 10,000 feet behind the third hall master. It was Xiaoyan. At this moment, Xiaoyan's clothes were a little tattered. His face was a little pale and there were traces of blood at the corner of his mouth. However, if one were to look at it from an overall perspective, Xiaoyan's condition was much better when compared to the third hall chief and the others. The third hall chief's expression once again changed when he saw that Xiaoyan was fine. He frowned in a somewhat grave manner. Xiaoyan parted his mouth and smiled when he saw the miserable manner of the third hall chief. However, he did not show the slightest worry. He just stood in the air with the corners of his mouth curled up. The anger in the third hall master's heart continued to burn. The third hall master's face twitched violently under the mask. If not for the mask covering his face, it was likely that anyone who saw him would think that he was sick. Under Xiaoyan's teasing, the third hall master was really angry. His body moved and a fist smashed toward Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan did not move at all when he saw this. This caused the anger in the third hall master's heart to burn even more. The strength of his fist also became even more ruthless. Boom! The huge fist carried a strong wind that tore through the air as it violently landed on Xiaoyan's body. However, before the third hall master could rejoice, the expression on his face became interesting again in the next moment. Through the mask, one could see that the third hall master's eyes were filled with disbelief. The expression on his face under the mask was also replaced by astonishment. The third hall master was stunned for a moment in the air. Only then did he react. His voice was solemn as he said, "An afterimage. How is this possible? With Xiaoyan's strength, how can he be faster than me?" In the next instant, the third hall master's gaze turned to another direction. There, accompanied by the whistling of a wind, Xiaoyan's figure appeared once again. When Xiaoyan's figure appeared, the third hall master finally reacted. He involuntarily said, No wonder you were able to dodge my attack so easily. So that's how it is. You have obtained the sky extinction step. No wonder you can easily surpass me in terms of speed with such strength." When Xiaoyan heard this, the smile that was supposed to appear on his face did not appear. Instead he frowned. The gaze that he used to look at the third hall master was replaced by a murderous intent. Xiaoyan was already very clear about the matter of the sky extinction step. The Liu clan had also repeatedly warned Xiaoyan not to let others know about the sky extinction step. However, he had just successfully mastered the first major stage of the sky extinction step, the initial stage of the wind-shaking realm. He did not expect that the third hall master would recognize him in such a manner. Just based on this point alone, Xiaoyan could not allow the third hall master to live. That's right. Xiaoyan's wind-shaking realm of the sky extinction step had stepped into the initial stage when the wild and violent storm swept over. Although the mysterious underworld soul-devouring palm of the old flame demon ghost was once again blocked by Xiaoyan, the energy that erupted from it was enough to seriously injure Xiaoyan and cause him to be on the brink of death. However, this opportunity came at such a coincidental time. Just a moment ago, Xiaoyan had actually broken through the wind-shaking realm of the sky extinction step under such a dangerous situation and reached the initial stage. Xiaoyan had also used this great opportunity to dodge this fatal blow. Although he did not manage to completely dodge due to the sudden breakthrough, Xiaoyan was much better off compared to the serious injuries of the old flame demon ghost and the others. Xiaoyan looked at the third hall master as a murderous intent rose in his heart. The third hall master also seemed to have sensed the impending danger. The originally grave expression on his face under the mask became even deeper. The dou qi in his body circulated to every part of his body, preparing to face Xiaoyan's attack at any moment. Xiaoyan ignored the third hall master's actions. Instead, he calmed his heart and deeply inhaled a breath of cool air. The air carried a trace of bloody taste in his mouth as it passed through his throat, leaving behind bits and pieces of bloody sweetness. The dou qi in his body slowly circulated. Waves of energy gathered around Xiaoyan and formed a huge energy whirlpool around him. The third hall master frowned. What was this fellow planning to do? He actually dared to train at such a time. Was he not afraid of death? Under normal circumstances, this kind of time was naturally the best time to attack. However, the third hall master was currently facing Xiaoyan. How could he dare to be careless in his heart? Hence, although the third hall master saw that Xiaoyan was training, he did not dare to act recklessly. As expected, the qi method in Xiaoyan's body circulated for only a few breaths' time before it came to a stop. Sensing the mottled natural energy around him, Xiaoyan lifted both of his hands. His eyes looked straight ahead as his hands began to change. One seal after another was formed by Xiao Yan's hands as Xiao Yan threw them out one by one. Chapter 63. Following the formation of the seal in Xiao Yan's hand, circular ripples of water like energy ripples began to spread around Xiao Yan's hands. It was a beautiful sight. However, the eyes of the third hall master suddenly shrunk to the size of a needle when these circular dark flower-like beautiful ripples spread out. The expression under the mask once again changed abruptly. His entire person instantly became frightened. Xiao Yan's expression was slightly pale at this moment. However, the movements of his hands did not pause at all. Instead, they were becoming increasingly faster. Xiao Yan formed the seal in his hands as he opened his mouth and coldly laughed at the third hall master. Since you are so familiar with my abilities, I think that you should also be extremely clear about this move that I am using right now. The third hall master swallowed the saliva that was stuck in his throat with great difficulty when he heard this. It was unknown whether it was because he was afraid or because of some other reason, but the third hall master paused for a long while before speaking in a trembling and dry voice. This is your second famous ultimate skill, Buddha? Angry Buddha reincarnation. Xiao Yan knew that he had already achieved his goal when he heard this. He lifted the corner of his mouth. His originally pale face appeared as white as paper under this mocking. He parted his mouth and laughed coldly. After which, he once again turned his attention to the Do skill in his hands. The third hall master was stunned by these words of Xiao Yan. His eyes were lifeless as he looked at the seal in Xiao Yan's hands. His mouth repeatedly muttered softly, "How is this possible? How is this possible? Didn't the news say that Xiao Yan has only mastered a Tian class Do skill? How is this possible? How is this possible?" It was no wonder that the third hall master would be so afraid. A Tian class Do skill was originally an extraordinary skill on the continent. Its strength was so great that it could break mountains and rivers. Although he was a 7-star half-emperor, he was unable to withstand the attack of a Tian class Do skill. Just by looking at the old flame demon ghost's failed Tian class Do skill, its strength was enough to cause a person of the third hall master's strength to spit out a mouthful of blood. From this, one could see just how powerful a Tian class Do skill was. As Xiao Yan's hand seals became faster and faster, a layer of gorgeous flames gushed out from the surface of Xiao Yan's body, wrapping Xiao Yan in flames. The heavenly flame was accompanied by energy ripples as it spread out in circles, completely enveloping the area within 1,000 feet of Xiao Yan. The heavenly flames spread out and bombarded the third hall master's body. The sudden high temperature caused the originally dull expression under the mask of the third hall master to instantly recover its clarity. His body, which was originally trembling, suddenly trembled. His eyes were filled with shock, and the expression on his face under the mask instantly tensed up. After taking a few steps back in the air, the third palace master finally reacted while panting. He looked at Xiao Yan, who was still changing the seals in his hands while his body was surrounded by flames. When the third palace master saw that the energy fluctuation around Xiao Yan's body was becoming more and more intense, he was suddenly startled. Only then did he completely wake up. The words that Xiao Yan had said earlier were just to distract the third palace master so that he could take the opportunity to use the angry Buddha cycle to kill him. At this moment, the third hall master had already understood in his heart. Xiao Yan clearly understood that although the angry Buddha cycle was currently a Tian class Do skill, his own strength was limited. It was impossible for him to directly kill the third hall master. Hence, he had used this move in order to distract the third hall master and take advantage of the latter's unpreparedness to forcefully kill him. Even though he would be seriously injured at that time, he would be able to keep his secret. When the third hall master thought of this in his heart, both of his eyes were instantly filled with a raging fury. However, within that fury there was also an endless amount of fear. Xiao Yan's strength had exceeded their understanding of him. In this way, the mission this time around was much more difficult than before. It was likely that there was only a fine line between life and death. The third hall master looked at the wave after wave of beautiful fire waves around Xiao Yan's body. After which, he recalled how Xiao Yan had toyed with him earlier. The fury in his heart once again rose. The third hall master swept his gaze over the 7 black spots in the enormous pit below. His nose emitted a cold snort as his eyes suddenly became stern. He raised both of his hands and swiftly formed numerous strange seals on his fingertips. As the seals changed, circular dark black ink-like energy ripples spread out from the third hall master's fingertips. The black fog around the third hall master stirred and separated into 6 clusters. They covered the 6 black figures below. However, the old flame demon ghost was not among them. The 6 clusters of black fog carried long tails as they swiftly descended like meteorites, after which they wrapped around the 6 seriously injured bodies. At the same time, the third Hall Master also emitted an explosive cry from his mouth. 10,000 ghosts devouring souls. Devour. Following this explosive cry of the third Hall Master, the 6 clusters of black fog below immediately emitted a gurgling chewing sound. It sounded incomparably horrifying. There were also waves of hoarse miserable cries within it, causing one to feel that it was incomparably bloody and cruel. A long while later the miserable cries gradually disappeared. Only the crunching sound of bones being chewed remained. It sounded extremely ear-piercing. There was no longer any reaction from the pit below. However, if one turned his head to look at the third Hall Master, one would discover that the current third Hall Master had greatly changed compared to before. At this moment, the black fog that lingered around the third Hall Master's body appeared to be much denser. At a glance, it gave one a feeling of nothingness. The third Hall Master's aura was also much stronger than before due to the dense black fog all over his body. Not only had the injuries all over his body recovered, but his strength had also greatly increased. A black-colored armor covered his entire body in front of his chest. The appearance of the armor was exactly the same as the magical beast on the mask. Moreover, at this moment, the magical beast on the armor appeared incomparably alive. The magical beast's mouth was wide open. 2 black fangs pointed outwards. There was even some energy light that flowed within its mouth. It looked just like fresh blood. Moreover, this magical beast's eyes were also emitting some light. If one were to take a closer look, it actually seemed as though it possessed a soul. It was even more terrifying. Looking at Xiaoyan again at this moment, the seals in Xiaoyan's hands were changing faster and faster. It was obvious that Xiaoyan had also sensed the extraordinariness of the third Hall Master's body. His heart also became a little anxious. After a long time, Xiaoyan finally reached the end. The third Hall Master had already prepared everything. He looked at Xiaoyan with a grave expression, waiting for Xiaoyan's sure kill attack to arrive. The third Hall Master naturally knew that he could not dodge it. It was also impossible for him to dodge it. Hence he might as well directly attack. Finally, Xiaoyan's face was pale. His body was a little unstable as he came to a stop. The movements of his hands also slowly came to a stop. At this moment, there was a beautiful flame halo in the middle of his palm. It was emitting a bright light. In the middle of the halo, there was a thumb-sized dark black light spot that quietly floated. Immediately Xiaoyan did his best to raise his arm. He faced the third Hall Master and spat out a sentence with great effort. Human Class Do Technique, Angry Buddha Reincarnation. I know that this kind of chapter is particularly boring and doesn't have any main points. To put it bluntly, it's just water, but I still hope that everyone will like it and persevere for a while. After all, the necessary procedures still have to be followed. Otherwise, it would be meaningless to continue writing later. I hope that everyone can persevere for a while. It's not easy for an editor to write chapters. There are many things to do every day, but recently, even if I work overtime, I can only write 2 chapters. Actually, the reason is that I want everyone to agree and like it. Please recommend me. Chapter 64. Xiaoyan's face was pale. His body swayed slightly as he stood in the air. However, he still forced himself to aim the fire ring in his hand at the third Hall Master. With a thought, he pushed his hand forward with all his might. After the fire ring was aimed at the third Hall Master, the black light spot in the middle of the fire ring brightened slightly. Immediately, a loud bang sounded. 1,000-foot-thick black light pillar shot toward the third Hall Master. When the third Hall Master saw the black light pillar, his expression instantly became grave. He quickly lifted his armored arms and crossed them in front of his body. At the same time, the Do Chi in his body surged out wildly. It turned into a 1,000-foot-long black energy shield in front of the third Hall Master. Among them, the defensive power of each energy shield was enough to block an all-out attack from a 3-star half-emperor. However, there were hundreds of such energy shields. From this, it could be seen that the third Hall Master had exhausted his strongest life-saving trump card in order to block Xiaoyan's attack. Bang! A loud ear-piercing sound spread across the sky, causing the entire sky to emit waves of vibrations. Some cracks also appeared in the space. The wild and ferocious energy storm swept across the sky. The originally incomparably large pit on the ground was once again forcefully torn apart by this powerful and unparalleled energy, forming a 1,000-foot wide deep canyon. In the sky there were still some clouds remaining. However, they were instantly blown away by this wild and ferocious storm. Only when one reached the distant horizon could one see a circular arc formed by clouds. Just as the pitch-black energy shield was formed, Xiaoyan's angry Buddha Samsara had also arrived. The moment the two collided, the pitch-black energy shield was easily destroyed by Xiaoyan's angry Buddha Samsara. It continued to charge until it was 100 feet away from the third hall master. Only then did it gradually slow down. The pitch-black energy shield emitted waves of pitch-black energy fog, blocking the advance of the black light pillar. Seeing this, Xiaoyan frowned slightly. Immediately his eyes focused. As a thought passed through his mind, the pitch-black light pillar once again became a little thicker. Xiaoyan raised his left hand and grabbed his right wrist. Immediately he clenched his teeth. His eyebrows were tightly knit together. He exerted force with both hands and pushed the fire ring forward. Bang! Under Xiaoyan's push with all his strength, the dark black energy light pillar finally broke through a couple of energy shields and charged forward for a distance of a couple of feet. The similarly pitch-black energy shield was absorbed by the pitch-black energy light pillar for some unknown reason after it exploded. It merged with the energy light pillar, causing the energy light pillar to become much more solid and powerful in the dark. The third hall master stepped through empty air and rubbed back 1,000 feet after being pushed by Xiaoyan with all his strength. Only then did he slowly stabilize his body. When the third hall master saw his energy shields explode one by one, his eyes were filled with a solemn expression. Moreover, the third hall master could feel a little disintegration in the black light pillar. At this moment, the third hall master could clearly sense that the energy shields protecting him were being disintegrated by the pitch-black energy light pillar. It was likely that it would not be long before these energy shields, which he had painstakingly formed by swallowing 6 people, would be broken one by Xiaoyan. The third hall master glanced at the energy shields that were still bitterly holding on. He then looked at the black armor on his body. His expression was grave. After a long while, the third hall master seemed to have made a great decision. His eyes suddenly focused and the seal in his hands changed once again. The energy shields that were bitterly holding on also emitted a bang sound and suddenly shattered. They turned into black light spots that filled the sky and immediately returned to the third hall master's body. Bang! When the black energy returned to his body, the third hall master's aura instantly became tyrannical and powerful. Looking at the pitch-black energy light pillar that was about to hit his body, the third hall master's hand seals changed rapidly. Immediately, the moment the black light pillar was about to hit him, he let out a loud roar. Dark Spirit Palm. The third hall master let out an explosive cry from his mouth. At the same time, his right palm also violently struck out toward the dark black energy light pillar. Silence. A deathly silence. The moment the third hall master's palm came into contact with the black light pillar, the entire world instantly became silent. Xiaoyan and the third hall chief did not find this strange in their hearts. All physical violence originated from silence, and now, between the seemingly silent palm and the black beam of light, a battle of life and death was actually taking place. The content of the battle was the energy supply of both parties. However, Xiaoyan naturally did not need to worry about this. He had already used the angry Buddha reincarnation and the energy within it was definitely sufficient. The only thing that was competing was the endurance of Xiaoyan and the third hall master. This situation did not last for long and would not last for long. In terms of the might of a Do's skill, the victor of this silent battle would only be Xiaoyan. Bang! An earth-shaking loud sound erupted. Wild and violent energy ripples also swept across the entire place. Xiaoyan and the third hall master were also sent flying by this frightening energy storm. Bang! Another loud sound appeared. Xiaoyan's body was violently smashed into the ground. When he landed, the force that it carried also flattened everything within 1,000 feet radius. Grug! Xiaoyan spat out a mouthful of blood. His originally pale face had become much redder. However, Xiaoyan's current condition could not be any worse. Several of the bones in his body had been broken. His body had also been seriously injured because of the energy storm. The current Xiaoyan could be said to be extremely weak. Looking at the third hall master again, the clothes of the current third hall master were completely torn. There was also a large pool of blood on his chest. However, his condition was clearly better than Xiaoyan's. Even until now, a portion of the third hall master's black armor was still intact. From this, one could tell just how shocking the defensive strength of this armor was. The third hall master stood up with great difficulty. He opened his palm and a jade bottle appeared in his palm. After consuming the medicinal pill, the third hall master ignored the injuries on his body and walked toward Xiaoyan with great difficulty. When the third hall master walked to 100 feet in front of Xiaoyan, the third hall master's body suddenly became soft. He sat down on the ground and no longer bothered about Xiaoyan. The third hall master panted heavily and withdrew his legs with great effort. He sat cross-legged on the ground and began to refine the medicinal strength of the medicinal pill within his body. Chapter 65. Xiaoyan lay in the ruins and lifted his head with great difficulty. He clenched his teeth and glanced at the third hall master, who was only 100 feet away from him. Immediately, he closed his eyes and his body softened as he lay down. He panted heavily, trying his best to make his body feel more comfortable. Xiaoyan's mind inspected his body and could not help but knit his eyebrows tightly together. At this moment, the qi paths in Xiaoyan's body were seriously damaged. They were basically broken inch by inch. The dou qi in his body had also completely disappeared. The enormous space in the middle of the vortex appeared incomparably empty at this moment. Xiaoyan forcefully endured the waves of intense pain that were emitted from his body. With a thought, a longan-sized medicinal pill appeared in his blood-stained palm. A Tier 9 recovery pill. It had an extremely good effect on internal injuries. Its medicinal properties were also extremely gentle. It was an excellent medicinal pill for treating internal injuries. Xiaoyan forcefully turned his body around and swallowed the medicinal pill along with the fresh blood that surged out of his mouth. He panted a few times and narrowed his eyes as he began to refine the pill. A few hours later, the third hall master's body slowly stood up from the ground. His eyes were filled with resentment as he looked at Xiaoyan, who was still lying in the ruins with his eyes closed. The third hall master walked in front of Xiaoyan and once again violently panted a few times. The air was filled with the smell of blood. Immediately, he slowly lifted his right hand. In his seriously injured state, this action was extremely strenuous for the third hall master. However, he still forcefully bent his right hand into a claw and aimed it at Xiaoyan's chest before piercing it downward. Xiaoyan's shut eyes were suddenly opened as he sensed the dangerous aura that he was getting increasingly close to. Immediately, the muscles in his entire body suddenly tightened. His leg violently kicked the third hall master's chest. Grug! The third hall master was kicked to the ground by Xiaoyan's kick. He spat out a mouthful of blood from his mouth. Immediately, he fell to the ground and panted violently, unable to move. On the other hand, Xiaoyan's chest seemed to be filled with strength. His body suddenly straightened and he flipped over from the ground. However, from Xiaoyan's gloomy eyes, it could be seen that the current Xiaoyan was not as fierce as he looked on the surface. Xiaoyan clenched his fists tightly, and all the muscles in his body tensed up. His throat rolled and he swallowed a mouthful of blood. He then fiercely bit the tip of his tongue and bit it until it was broken. The wound on the tip of his tongue triggered the nerves in his entire body. Xiaoyan's eyes glowed faintly. Ignoring the third hall master who was lying on the ground, Xiaoyan moved his body and rushed out of the huge ruins in a somewhat sorry state. Immediately after, he fiercely stomped on the void. His body trembled as he rushed into the distance, leaving behind drops of bright red blood wherever he passed. Boom! In a mountain forest, a bloody figure with tattered clothes fell from the sky and smashed into the ground. After rolling a few times, he stopped moving. If it was not for the breath from his nose, anyone who saw him would have thought that he was a dead person. After a long while, Xiaoyan slowly woke up amidst a coughing sound. His eyes swept around, checking everything in his surroundings. "Ha, kid, not bad. Although you are seriously injured, you can barely be considered to have profited from beating that damn thing to such a state." Suddenly, an old voice sounded from the bottom of Xiaoyan's heart, causing Xiaoyan to be shocked. The loose muscles in his body once again tensed up. After hearing who it was, Xiaoyan finally relaxed. His tense body relaxed and Xiaoyan instantly felt that all the muscles in his body were extremely sore. Waves of heart-wrenching pain were emitted from within his body. Xiaoyan's face became distorted, causing his already bloody face to appear even more frightening. Xiaoyan violently panted a couple of times. He slowly suppressed the heart-wrenching pain that was emitted from within his body. His heart roared at Guyu. "Old man, can you speak first the next time you speak? You will end up killing me." Guyu smiled awkwardly upon hearing this, but he did not say anything else. Xiaoyan quietly cursed a couple of times in his heart before ignoring him. Both of his eyes were shut as he focused on refining the medicinal pill within his body. Although Xiaoyan had refined the medicinal pill within his body to treat his injuries during the time he had spent with the third hall master, there was still too little time. Hence, Xiaoyan did not completely refine the medicinal strength. Adding this to the fact that he had forcefully endured the kick from the third hall master earlier and had flown so far, The injuries within Xiao Yan's body, which had yet to recover, had become even more serious. If Xiao Yan did not take advantage of this moment to quickly heal his injuries, it was likely that he would really end up with some sequelae. A couple of hours later, Xiao Yan slowly opened his shut eyes. He moved his body slightly, but he still felt the same incomparable pain. Xiao Yan quietly sighed in his heart. A thought passed through his mind, and another Tier 9 recovery pill appeared in his palm. Xiao Yan forcefully swallowed the medicinal pill. He once again shut his eyes and calmly began to refine it. At the same time, at the place where Xiao Yan had fought with the third hall master and the others, a green-clothed old man was slowly rushing over from the distant horizon. At this moment, the mountain forest had already turned into ruins. Looking from above, one could only see a huge crater, as if it had been created by an asteroid. The third hall master and the flame demon old ghost had already disappeared. At this moment, a green-clothed old man was looking at everything with a gloomy face. After a long time, the old man sighed deeply and said to the sky, "Fellow Xiao Yan, the old me is Yuan Qing. I have come late. If your spirit is in heaven, please believe the old me. The old me, Yuan Qing, will use the remaining strength of my life to avenge you until my death. I will also give an explanation to the clan behind you." The moment these words were spoken, Xiao Yan, who was in the middle of refining the medicinal pill in the forest, suddenly sneezed for some unknown reason. It shook him until his entire body was incomparably sore. After pausing for a moment, Xiao Yan grimaced and opened his mouth to speak. "Which damn thing is cursing me to die now? When I recover from my injuries, I will definitely come and visit you." Oh. At the same time, thunderclouds suddenly gathered in the sky, and the heavenly might surged. Yuan Qing raised his head to the sky and ignored it, wholeheartedly waiting for the heavenly thunder's oath. However, for some unknown reason, the thunderclouds that had just settled down quietly scattered before they could strike. This caused Yuan Qing to be completely confused. After blinking a few times, he flew in a certain direction. Chapter 66. Swoosh swoosh, dark clouds filled the sky, shrouding the entire world, causing the originally bright day to turn into a dark night. Wild winds surged in the sky above the green forest as a huge whirlwind expanded across the land. Waves of energy continued to emerge from the sky, after which they were swept into this whirlpool and disappeared in a flash. In the middle of the endless green forest, a young man in white was sitting cross-legged on a piece of green rock with his legs bent. The man's eyes were shut, and his face appeared a little pale. Both of his hands formed a training seal as he absorbed the natural energy for his own training. Waves of mottled natural energy fell from the huge whirlpool above his head. They gathered into a thick energy pillar that surged into the man's body from the Baihui acupoint on his head. After which, it was refined and absorbed by the man. This situation repeated for a couple of hours. Only after the energy whirlpool above the man's head slowly disappeared did the man withdraw from his training state. Xiao Yan slowly opened his eyes. A brilliant light flashed deep within his eyes. Soon after, the air in front of Xiao Yan became distorted. It was accompanied by tiny black lines. Qing, a towering ancient tree a couple of dozen feet away from Xiao Yan, suddenly emitted a qi sound. Immediately, it turned into tiny powder that scattered down. An unknown cold wind blew past and the powder disappeared. Xiao Yan deeply exhaled a mouthful of turbid air that had been suppressed in his chest. Both of his eyes narrowed once again. He lifted his head and gently inhaled the pure air. The corners of Xiao Yan's mouth lifted as he sensed the waves of comfort that were emitted from all over his body. After half a month of recovery, the injuries in my body are more or less healed. Aha, the strength of your physical body has exceeded my expectations. If it was an ordinary person, I'm afraid that it would take at least a couple of months to recover from such serious injuries. TSK. Moreover, the Dragon Phoenix bloodline in your body. TSK. They are all extraordinary things. The corners of Xiao Yan's mouth once again curled into a smile upon hearing this, but he did not reply. After such a long time, Xiao Yan was already used to Gu Yu's unpredictable appearance. Hence he was not too surprised. Xiao Yan paused for a moment. The corner of his mouth carried a smile. His eyes suddenly became calm as he slowly opened his mouth and said, "Yes, I didn't expect my injuries to heal so quickly. And this, it's all thanks to that black-clothed man." At the end of his words, Xiao Yan's originally calm tone suddenly turned cold, causing the temperature around Xiao Yan to abruptly drop. Shaking his head, Xiao Yan tossed these thoughts out of his mind. He straightened his body and twisted left and right. Then, with a violent shake, the bluestone Xiao Yan was sitting on shattered into a pile of dust. On the other hand, Xiaoyan was still sitting cross-legged on the spot, not moving at all. Upon closer inspection, Xiaoyan was actually sitting in the air. There was no need for the bluestone as a cushion. After resting for a moment, Xiaoyan's spiritual strength spread out. A thought passed through his mind and he heard the rustling sound of leaves within the forest. Then a wild rabbit flew in front of Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan smiled and said indifferently, "Tonight you can only eat me. I hope that you will have a good reincarnation in your next life." After that, Xiaoyan's spiritual power fluctuated again. Soon after, the fragrance of meat drifted out of the forest. The next day Xiaoyan's eyelids trembled as he slowly opened his eyes. With a flip of his right hand, a pill the size of a longan appeared in Xiaoyan's right palm. Tai Blood Recovery Pill, a Tier 9 golden pill. It was the pill with the fastest recovery rate among the Tier 9 pills. When used when seriously injured, it could speed up the recovery rate of the injury. Usually it would take a month, but after using the Tai Blood Recovery Pill, half a month was enough. In this way the efficacy of the Tai Blood Recovery Pill could be seen. But the only flaw was that the Tai Blood Recovery Pill's efficacy was too strong. It couldn't be used when seriously injured, so Xiaoyan didn't care too much about it at first and only refined a few pills. Now that he thought about it, Xiaoyan was quite glad. Although he didn't refine too many, these few pills were enough for his current situation. Otherwise, when the black-clothed man caught up with him and he was seriously injured, it would be too late for regrets. After taking the pill, Xiaoyan closed his eyes again and calmed his mind to refine it. The pill melted in his mouth and instantly turned into a scorching but not very strong energy flow, rushing into Xiaoyan's body. In Xiaoyan's body, a scarlet energy wave shuttled between his meridians and organs. Everywhere it passed it was red. In this red there was a tingling feeling. Coupled with the bursts of scorching heat, it made Xiaoyan feel that everything in his body was a little swollen. In the outside world, Xiaoyan's face was flushed red, the veins on his forehead squirmed, and tiny beads of sweat overflowed from his forehead and slid down his cheeks. Looking at Xiaoyan's body, in the center of the cyclone, there was a scarlet bead, emitting bursts of scorching energy fluctuations. Waves of fiery red air waves swept out from Xiaoyan's body and spread to Xiaoyan's entire body. When the fiery red energy came into contact with Xiaoyan's muscles and organs, it directly immersed into them. At the same time, it also transmitted bursts of swelling pain to Xiaoyan, making Xiaoyan feel very uncomfortable. This repeated state lasted for a full 12 hours, and Xiaoyan was also tortured by the medicinal strength of the pill until he was somewhat numb. The clothes all over Xiaoyan's body were completely soaked in sweat, tightly sticking to his body. Finally, the medicinal strength of the Tai Blood Recovery Pill was completely refined by Xiaoyan, immersing into all the organs and meridians in Xiaoyan's body, unceasingly healing the injuries in Xiaoyan's body for a long time. The instant the medicinal pill was completely refined, Xiaoyan's body became weak and he fell backward. He lay flat on the grass and quickly fell into a deep sleep. Chapter 67. Half a month later. Wind howled in the sky. It was clearly the hot sun in the sky, but one could not feel even the slightest bit of warmth. The white-clothed Xiaoyan was seated on an empty ground in the forest. Both of his hands formed a seal and formed a training seal. Threads of natural energy involuntarily gathered toward Xiaoyan, after which they were refined and absorbed by Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan withdrew from his training state 2 hours later. He sensed the abundant dou qi in his body and smiled faintly. Until today, the injuries that Xiaoyan had suffered in the fight with the Third Hall Masters group could be considered to have completely healed. The injuries on his body had healed, but the pain in Xiaoyan's heart had not lessened. His injuries had healed, but the injuries that the heavy Xian ruler had suffered from blocking the attack for him were still present. Xiaoyan flipped his hand and a huge black ruler appeared in Xiaoyan's hand. It was the heavy Xian ruler. Unfortunately, after the Third Hall Master's punch and palm, the heavy Xian ruler's body had already been replaced by cracks. At a glance, it seemed as though it would instantly fall apart if one were to gently bend it with one's hand. Xiaoyan used one hand to hold the huge ruler from below while his other hand gently rubbed the surface of the huge ruler. Xiaoyan could naturally use his strength to allow the heavy Xian ruler to float in the air. However, the heavy Xian ruler was currently on the verge of collapse. Additionally, Xiaoyan had various feelings for this heavy Xian ruler and Yao Lao. Even if he had the strength, how could he be at ease allowing it to float in the air? Xiaoyan's hand rubbed the tiny cracks on the heavy Xian ruler. His heart missed the days when he had carried the heavy Xian ruler and followed Yao Lao to roam the continent. Xiaoyan's expression was indifferent. The corners of his mouth curled into a smile. Guyu, who was within Xiaoyan's body, quietly nodded when he saw this. This person's character was so calm. He was able to remain so calm even when facing such a great enmity. He was extraordinary. An enemy who showed everything on his face was not scary. What was scary was an enemy who would still smile at you after suffering a loss. Because you often don't know how terrifying the abyss of hell is beneath that smile. After a long while, Xiaoyan's hands paused slightly. With a flash of light in his hand, the dark heavy buster sword was put into the storage ring by Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan's figure moved, and in the next moment, a white-robed figure suddenly appeared on a mountain peak a few hundred miles away. Xiaoyan stood on top of the mountain peak with his hands behind his back. His soul power gushed out from Xiaoyan's forehead and spread out in all directions. A moment later, Xiaoyan frowned slightly. His figure flashed again and flew towards the depths of the mountain forest. 15 minutes later, Xiaoyan's advancing body paused slightly. His spiritual strength once again spread out, taking in everything within a radius of a few thousand miles into his eyes. 7 rank 9 magical beasts, 16 rank 8 magical beasts, 49 rank 7 magical beasts, over 100 rank 6 magical beasts and even more. These magical beasts were suppressed by this powerful aura that had suddenly appeared when Xiaoyan probed. All of them lay on the ground submissively and did not even dare to make a sound. Xiaoyan's expression was indifferent. A cold glint flashed deep within his eyes. Soon after he lifted his hand. A muffled bang sounded, and a cluster of brilliant flames rose from Xiaoyan's palm. The world suddenly became dry the moment the heavenly flame rose. Even a breath of air would cause one's throat to feel dry and painful. A thought passed through Xiaoyan's mind, and the heavenly flame in his hand emitted a strange ripple. In the next moment, before those magical beasts could react, they were turned into nothingness, leaving behind traces of pure blood and monster cores of various colors. A thought passed through Xiaoyan's mind. In the next moment, the sky was instantly replaced by monster cores that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. The heavenly flame in Xiaoyan's hand flew out and spread out, enveloping all of the monster cores. Amidst a sizzling sound, the monster cores were refined by the heavenly flame until only droplets of pure energy were left. A moment later, Xiaoyan flipped his palm again, and the heavy Xian ruler appeared in Xiaoyan's hand. In the space in front of Xiaoyan, a huge cluster of brilliant energy droplets was quietly floating. Xiaoyan pushed his palm forward, sending the heavy Xian ruler into the cluster of droplets. Immediately after, the seals in Xiaoyan's hands changed. In the next moment, a huge cluster of heavenly flame appeared in front of Xiaoyan, and wrapped around the droplets. The heavenly flame completely enveloped the liquid droplets. Under the continuous refinement of the heavenly flame, the liquid droplets slowly merged with the heavy Xian ruler and repaired the body of the ruler. Oh, what was that just now? Yes, I seem to have heard of it. That is? The heavy Xian ruler? This is really surprising. The heavy Xian ruler has actually appeared. TSK. While Xiaoyan was repairing the heavy Xian ruler, a young man wearing a green robe was curiously looking at Xiaoyan on a towering ancient tree 1,000 feet away from Xiaoyan. Looks like something has happened to the heavy Xian ruler. Is he trying to borrow the 10,000 beast blood and this pure energy to repair the heavy Xian ruler? Ah, he is indeed too naive. How can the heavy Xian ruler be repaired so easily by you? If that's the case, haha, I will have to rely on you. Ha! The young man looked at Xiaoyan's actions and softly muttered to himself. After dozens of hours, the huge cluster of energy droplets was finally completely immersed in the heavy Xian ruler. However, Xiaoyan was not happy at all. This was because, originally he had planned to restore the heavy Xian ruler to its original state, but now nothing had happened. There was not even the slightest sign of restoration. Xiaoyan frowned and sighed. After a long while, Xiaoyan finally opened his mouth and said, "The friend over there, after watching for so long, shouldn't you come out and meet me?" Chapter 68. Within the range of Xiaoyan's aura, Xiaoyan was able to clearly sense a somewhat obscure aura. The owner of this aura caused Xiaoyan's heart to slightly tighten. The reason for that was because this person's strength had actually reached the level of a 4-star half-martial emperor. Furthermore, from Xiaoyan's probing, this person's age did not exceed 35 years old. Such a young half-martial emperor expert was truly the first person that Xiaoyan had seen since he became an emperor. Although this aura had already been detected by Xiaoyan, due to the matter of repairing the heavy profound ruler, Xiaoyan had never mentioned it. Now that the heavy profound ruler's repair had failed, Xiaoyan naturally loathed the person who was spying on him. Although that person possessed some strength, his speed was not to be underestimated either. At the very most, he would be able to use another Buddha's angry samsara. Once Xiaoyan said those words, The azure-robed man 3,000 feet away from Xiaoyan also smiled in understanding. He smiled at Xiaoyan and replied, "Haha, it's quite troublesome to repair the heavy profound ruler." Seeing that this friend was going through such trouble to repair this ruler, I couldn't help but feel a bit curious. Thus I stopped to take a look. Hearing those words, Xiaoyan frowned slightly. This person's tone was very gentle and did not contain the slightest trace of hostility. However, to Xiaoyan's surprise, this person actually began to talk about the heavy profound ruler. This caused Xiaoyan to feel a bit strange in his heart. After a long while, Xiaoyan probingly replied, "Since this is the case, you've already seen enough. Since that's the case and you've seen enough, shouldn't you leave?" Hearing those words, the man's brows slightly raised. The words to chase him away were truly straightforward. However, the man immediately reacted. With a thought, he softly laughed and said, "Ha ha. Of course. Since this friend has ordered me to leave, if this one doesn't leave, it would seem somewhat shameless. This one will leave right away." Before he finished speaking, the man turned around and walked towards the depths of the mountain forest. However, before he left, he slightly tilted his head and glanced at Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan's eyes flickered when he saw this. He had guessed something in his heart. Thus, when the man disappeared from Xiaoyan's sight, Xiaoyan's figure moved. He flew up from the mountain peak and chased after the man. 15 minutes later, one would be able to sense a faint pressure wherever one's aura reached. At the very least, this pressure was already unparalleled to those dozongs and dozuns. Even an elite do sheng would likely have to be extremely cautious when they arrived at this place. At this moment, in the forest in a slightly remote cave, a huge beast covered with tiger stripes was quietly sleeping. Gusts of wind blew out from its nose as it breathed in and out. From the looks of its aura, this magical beast had already reached the advanced level of a rank 9 magical beast. Its strength was comparable to a human 8-star do sheng. It was the overlord level expert of this region. All of a sudden, the giant beast's bell-sized eyes abruptly opened. The hairs all over its body stood on end. Its bloodthirsty eyes were currently covered by a terrifying aura. A rank 9 magical beast's intelligence was quite high. Although it did not know why the high-rank magical beasts on this continent did not know how to transform, their intelligence was clearly displayed. Just a moment ago, this king of the forest had sensed an extremely frightening pressure in an instant. Although the owner of the pressure had already withdrawn, the faint remnant might that was revealed still caused it to feel a kind of terror that could destroy both its body and soul. After a couple of breaths, the owner of the aura finally left this place under the probing of this magical beast. However, before it could relax, another aura flashed by in the next instant. This tiger-shaped magical beast once again trembled. Although this aura was a little weaker than the previous one, this magical beast did not dare to act recklessly. A green-robed human figure slowly came to a stop at the edge of the sky in the outside world. Xiaoyan's figure had also caught up 10,000 feet behind him. The man turned around and saw. A surprised expression flashed across his eyes. Xiaoyan's speed had clearly shocked him. TSK, this speed is something that only I can catch up to if I use all my strength. However, he is able to do it so easily. Looks like he does have some tricks up his sleeve. Seeing that Xiaoyan's speed was even faster than his, the man was merely a little surprised. The expression on his face was once again dominated by a smile. However, this is even more to my liking. It is likely that I might really be able to borrow his strength to succeed. The man's mouth softly muttered. Xiaoyan's figure had also arrived in front of him from the distance. The green-robed man smiled as he looked at the calm and composed Xiaoyan in front of him. He opened his mouth and laughed. Hee, friend's speed is really beyond my expectation. As the saying goes, don't hit a smiling person. Not to mention that the man in front of him spoke in such a calm tone. Xiaoyan's tone was naturally gentle. I just have some tricks up my sleeve. After all, it's impossible to not have any means to escape when you are outside. The man didn't say much after hearing Xiaoyan's casual words. He smiled and said to Xiaoyan again, "I think you must have a reason to follow me." The man's words were flat. There was no trace of doubt in his words. Xiaoyan also smiled and said, "Since you have a way to repair my ruler, I will naturally follow you." Hearing this, the man's smile became even brighter. He nodded and said with a smile, "I just like to deal with smart people. It is convenient and fast. Since this is the case, let's get to know each other first." The man cupped his hands and said with a smile, "I am Luo Jin." Xiaoyan quietly remembered this name in his heart when he heard this. After which, he smiled slightly and returned the courtesy as he opened his mouth and said, "I am Yan Xiao." Chapter 69. Luo Jin's eyes flashed when he heard this. He smiled at Xiao Yan and cupped his hands together. Brother Yan Xiao, nice to meet you. Xiao Yan also smiled and cupped his hands together. Brother Luo Jin, nice to meet you. Luo Jin nodded his head and did not say any more pleasantries. Instead he went straight to the point. Brother Yan Xiao, the crack on this huge ruler of yours has already reached deep into its core. If you are careless, it is likely that it will break into two. At that time, it is likely that it will be impossible for you even if you merge all the natural treasures in the world. And your previous act of forcefully fusing will only worsen the damage of this giant ruler. If you do it again, I'm afraid this giant ruler will be destroyed. Xiao Yan's expression changed slightly when he heard this. By saying this, if the heavy Shen ruler were to really break into two, he would instead become the main culprit who had caused all of this. When he thought of this and thought of the importance of the heavy Shen ruler to himself, Xiao Yan instantly felt a sense of guilt deep in his soul. Fortunately, all of this did not happen. Otherwise, it was likely that Xiao Yan would really go berserk and find the third hall chief to kill and take revenge. Xiao Yan's eyes and mouth twitched slightly. His throat rolled and he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Then he woke up from Luo Jin's words. After thanking Luo Jin, Xiao Yan immediately opened his mouth to ask Luo Jin in an anxious manner. May I ask Brother Luo, what is the restoration method that you know? This giant ruler is very important to me. I hope Brother Luo can tell me. When Luo Jin heard this, he did not directly answer. Instead he asked Xiao Yan another question. Luo Jin rubbed his chin with one hand. After his eyes turned a few times, he asked Xiao Yan as if he was guessing. Brother Yan Xiao, if I'm not wrong, the material used to forge your giant ruler should be the rare meteoric flame mysterious iron, right? When Xiao Yan heard this, he raised his eyebrows slightly. He was a little puzzled as to why Luo Jin would ask such a question. However, he still nodded his head in agreement. Luo Jin seemed to have expected Xiao Yan's doubts. Without waiting for Xiao Yan to ask, he continued to speak with a smile. The restoration method that I spoke of is related to this meteorite mysterious iron. Hearing this, Xiao Yan's eyes lit up. If that was the case, it was indeed the best way to repair the dark heavy buster sword. The heavy Shen ruler was originally forged from the flaming meteorite mysterious iron. It was naturally extremely easy to repair it with the flaming meteorite mysterious iron. Of course, Xiao Yan had already thought of such a simple method, but how could the meteorite mysterious iron be so easy to find? The meteorite mysterious iron was one of the rare weapon materials on the continent and it was extremely rare. Each time it appeared, it would cause a storm on the continent and cause the continent to tremble. Xiao Yan had thought that the meteorite mysterious iron used to forge his dark heavy buster sword might be the last piece in the world. However, from the looks of it now, this was not the case. When Xiao Yan heard Luo Jin's words, he roughly understood. No wonder Luo Jin wanted to ask him about the materials used to forge the dark heavy buster sword. It seemed that he knew where to find the meteorite mysterious iron. Xiao Yan was relieved and turned his gaze to Luo Jin. Luo Jin did not say anything and smiled at Xiao Yan and nodded his head. When Xiao Yan saw this, he was even more delighted. However, Luo Jin's words immediately caused Xiao Yan's expression to instantly turn grave. After Luo Jin nodded his head at Xiao Yan, he said, I do know where to find the meteorite mysterious iron. I do indeed know where the meteorite mysterious iron is. Furthermore, I know that it is a piece of meteorite mysterious iron that is several tens of feet wide. Merely there is a person there. His strength is roughly that of an 8-star half-martial emperor. The corners of Xiao Yan's mouth twitched a few times. However, in order to repair the dark heavy buster sword, Xiao Yan endured it. Furthermore, to be precise, he is not a person. Instead, he is a magical beast. A high-rank magical beast that has transformed into a human form. The few words high-rank magical beast were especially emphasized by Luo Jin, causing Xiao Yan's expression to become even more serious. A magical beast that was comparable to an 8-star half-martial emperor was indeed a little too terrifying for Xiao Yan. After a long while, Xiao Yan turned his gaze back to Luo Jin and asked with a frown. Since that is the case, I believe Brother Luo also has something that you want, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have come to cooperate with me. When Luo Jin heard this, he revealed a slightly embarrassed smile. With a smile, he explained to Xiao Yan, For me, it is very troublesome. For me alone, this is indeed a little troublesome. If I'm not careful, I might lose my life. However, now that there are two of us, the chances of success will naturally be higher. When Xiao Yan heard this, the expression on his face was still somewhat unnatural. However, in order to repair the dark heavy buster sword, Xiao Yan was willing to go all out. Xiao Yan narrowed his eyes and asked Luo Jin, Brother Luo, since you know so much about the item in that magical beast's hand and how powerful it is, I believe Brother Luo is already quite familiar with it. In that case, Brother Luo, please explain the origin of this magical beast. When Luo Jin heard this, he knew that Xiaoyan was already on the boat. Therefore, he directly opened his mouth and said, "That magical beast is called the Cloud-Splitting Wolf. It is a magical beast in the magical beast world that is known for its tyrannical physical body. The strength of its physical body is enough to tear a 3-star half-martial emperor to pieces. It lives in the deepest part of the Lianyun mountain range, the Green Ridge mountain range. It lives alone, and there is not a single magical beast that is somewhat tyrannical within a radius of several tens of thousands of miles." Xiaoyan knit his brows slightly when he heard this. It seemed that the deterrence of this cloud-splitting wolf was quite great. It was able to occupy such a large mountain range just by living alone. He really did not know whether or not no one would be allowed to stay on this continent if his strength was a little stronger. Xiaoyan exclaimed for a while. Then he could not help but sigh in his heart. It is still good to have strength. No one dares to invade. Ghost Temple Sect, although I do not know why you know so much about me since you insist on making me attack, then next time don't blame me. Chapter 70. Since this is the case, Brother Luo, when should we leave? Xiaoyan sighed emotionally in his heart before opening his mouth to ask Luo Jin. Although his tone was calm, Luo Jin was able to hear a thread of urgency. Luo Jin smiled as he looked towards the horizon. His eyes were filled with wisdom. In the horizon, a patch of red clouds gathered high up in the sky. The scorching sun that had been burning for an entire day had already sunk into the western mountains. Evening quietly arrived. When Xiaoyan saw this, his eyebrows gently raised. Given his intelligence, he naturally understood a little. Xiaoyan nodded his head. He also looked at the fiery red sunset and said without turning his head, "Is it because the sky is turning dark?" Luo Jin smiled again and nodded his head. His tone was calm as he said, "This cloud-splitting wolf can borrow the power of the moon to strengthen himself during the night. Furthermore, the darkness of the night and his wolf tribe's innate speed. If we really go and find him, even if you and I use all our strength, we will not be able to last more than 300 rounds against him." When Xiaoyan heard this, he softly sighed. Immediately, he sat down and closed his eyes to focus on his cultivation. Luo Jin's eyebrows slightly raised and he smiled. This was truly a cultivation maniac. Even at such a time, he was still going all out to cultivate. Luo Jin gently shook his head and closed his eyes. Spiritual energy spread out from his body, and in a few breaths' time, he brought the 2 wild rabbits back. Deep in the night, in the forest, a bonfire was emitting flames. When it shone on the surrounding grass and ancient trees, it was as if a thin layer of golden paint had been applied to them. Xiaoyan and Luo Jin sat cross-legged on the ground. Some light was reflected on their faces. Their dark black hair had also turned golden yellow. Luo Jin tore off a piece of meat that was dripping oil from the bonfire and handed it to Xiaoyan. "Haha, perhaps it was not roasted well. I hope Brother Yan Xiao will forgive me." Xiaoyan smiled and nodded his head. He took the piece of meat from Luo Jin's hand and took a bite. However, in the next instant, Xiaoyan's action of swallowing his food suddenly paused. His entire face immediately turned green. The corners of Xiaoyan's mouth twitched slightly. He stared at Luo Jin with an ugly expression and did not say a word. When Luo Jin saw this, he thought that Xiaoyan was suspecting him. He hurriedly opened his mouth to explain. "Brother Yan Xiao, I did not put poison in it. This is the first time we met. How could I have the intention to harm you?" Xiaoyan's face remained green when he heard this. His expression appeared to be somewhat speechless toward this Luo Jin. A long while later, Xiaoyan finally stuck out his tongue. His face twitched slightly and his words were unclear as he opened his mouth to speak with a messy tone. You have never cooked." When these words came out, Luo Jin's expression suddenly froze. He smiled awkwardly and lowered his head without saying a word. Xiaoyan also smiled. He did not expect that Luo Jin did not even know how to cook. He really did not know how he survived in the wilderness. Luo Jin appeared to know what Xiaoyan was thinking in his heart. He once again smiled awkwardly before speaking in an embarrassed manner. "In the past, I would only come out after I had bought enough dry rations. Therefore, I have never cooked for myself." Xiaoyan was helpless. This method was really strange. Xiaoyan did not know whether to laugh or cry as he shook his head. With a thought, spiritual energy quickly spread out from between his eyebrows and spread in all directions. In a few breaths, 2 fat wild rabbits flew in front of Xiaoyan. With a thought, Xiaoyan had already packed up the rabbits under Luo Jin's envious gaze. Very quickly, the two rabbits were sprinkled with seasoning. Just one look at them would make one's appetite soar, and they appeared in front of Luo Jin's eyes. Without any hesitation, Luo Jin stretched out his hands and hugged one of the rabbits. His mouth began to eat in big bites. Xiaoyan smiled and also tore off a rabbit leg from the roasted meat and ate in big bites. The night passed just like that. The next dire ray of sunlight passed through the layers of trees and shone on the ground in front of the two. The moment the sunlight shone in, the two who were originally sitting cross-legged with their eyes closed suddenly opened their eyes. The two of them looked at each other and nodded. They stood up together and flew into the depths of the forest. At this moment, the two of them were moving in unison. Although they each had their own strengths, Xiaoyan's methods perfectly made up for everything. The two of them were like good friends who had known each other for many years. They were extremely close. As the two of them flew, Xiaoyan turned his head and asked Luo Jin, "Brother Luo, have you thought of a plan? Otherwise, when the two of us fight against the cloud-splitting wolf together, I'm afraid it will be a little dangerous." Hearing this, the corners of Luo Jin's mouth curled into a confident arc. He turned his head and smiled at Xiaoyan as he replied, "Of course. Otherwise, with the strength of the two of us, it will really be difficult to deal with him." "Oh ha! Then what is Brother Luo's plan? Let me hear it. It will be easier for us to act when the time comes." Hearing this, Luo Jin nodded his head and continued to speak to Xiaoyan. "Although the cloud-splitting wolf's strength is terrifying, it is extremely afraid of sunlight. When the time comes, the two of us will work together to lure it out of his cave. You will block his cave and I will use one of my Do techniques to injure it the moment it is suppressed by the sunlight. I will use this to delay it. As for you, you only need to go to his cave and obtain the things that both of us need." Xiaoyan nodded his head in agreement. However, he immediately frowned and opened his mouth to ask, "May I know what Brother Luo wants? At that time it will be easier for me to obtain it." Heaven Imperial Jade Essence. A green-blue spirit stone. At its location, there should be many Heaven Imperial flowers growing. This can be refined into a high-tier medicinal pill and is beneficial to your cultivation. You can take it. However, I hope that you can help me obtain the Heaven Imperial Jade Essence. If I obtain it, I will owe Brother Yanxiao a huge favor. I, Luo Jin, will first thank you." Saying this, Luo Jin stopped in the air and cupped his hands heavily at Xiaoyan. He bowed slightly and expressed his gratitude to Xiaoyan. Chapter 71. Xiaoyan quietly nodded in his heart when he saw how sincere Luo Jin's attitude was. Not only was Luo Jin meticulous, but he was also very magnanimous. Xiaoyan felt reassured to work with him. Moreover, after interacting with him for such a short period of time, Xiaoyan could tell that Luo Jin was likely an outstanding disciple from some faction. Additionally, Luo Jin was an easygoing person. Hence, Xiaoyan had a good impression of Luo Jin. He extended his hand and courteously thanked Luo Jin. After which, the two of them once again flew towards the Lianyun mountain range. Tiske, this little fellow is not simple." Xiaoyan's eyes flashed as he flew. He asked Guyu in his heart, "Elder Gu, what is this? Elder Gu, what do you mean by that? Could it be that I was deceived by him?" The person who had spoken was naturally Guyu. Xiaoyan's heart was slightly shaken after hearing Guyu's words. Hence he asked Guyu with some lingering fear. Guyu softly chuckled upon hearing this. He said, "Don't worry. I do not know if there is a problem with this little fellow, but the thing he wants is not ordinary." Xiaoyan lifted his eyebrows slightly. He asked Guyu in his heart again, "Elder Gu, are you talking about the heavenly imperial jade essence that he wants?" "Yes." Xiaoyan involuntarily frowned. He was just about to ask when Guyu quickly spoke. The heavenly imperial jade essence is a natural treasure. It contains extremely pure natural energy. If it is refined and absorbed by someone, that person's strength will definitely soar. This is especially true for a little fellow at the half-emperor level like you. If you use the heavenly imperial jade essence, your strength will definitely soar. Xiaoyan was slightly startled when he heard this. He originally thought that it was already very good that Luo Jin had told him about the heavenly imperial flower. He did not expect that Luo Jin had hidden such a great treasure. However, the effectiveness of the heavenly imperial jade essence depends on how much natural energy it absorbs. Normally, if it's a piece of heavenly jade essence that's more than 1,000 years old, the energy it contains is enough to raise your cultivation level by 2 levels. Therefore, I believe that you already have an answer in your heart. Xiaoyan nodded slightly. Since that is the case, I will do my best to help him obtain the heavenly imperial court jade essence. This way, it can be considered as me repaying him for helping me find the meteorite mysterious iron. Guyu was speechless when he heard this. There were clearly a few big items waiting for him, yet he wanted to give them to others after obtaining them. This was really too much. However, Guyu thought about it and nodded. He was full of praise for Xiaoyan in his heart. He had a steady temperament, knew how to be grateful, and would not be swayed by petty benefits. He could indeed be considered a moldable talent. Time passed, and the two of them had already entered the Lianyun mountain range. They continued walking towards the depths of the mountain range. The moment the two of them entered the Lianyun mountain range, there was a huge cave in the depths of the Lianyun mountain range. A tall and straight man with a head full of silver hair was seated on the ground. His originally narrowed eyes suddenly opened at this moment as he looked towards Xiaoyan and Luo Jin's direction. The man frowned slightly, snorted softly and muttered to himself, "That's right." He muttered to himself, "A 2-star half-emperor and a 4-star half-emperor. With such strength they actually dare to enter my territory. They must be tired of living." After his voice sounded, the man once again narrowed his eyes and continued to sit on the ground. He quietly waited for Xiaoyan and Luo Jin's arrival. A moment later, Xiaoyan and Luo Jin's figures finally appeared in the depths of the Lianyun mountain range. Xiaoyan and Luo Jin's figures stood side by side in front of the huge cave entrance. They both looked at the huge cave entrance in front of them. This cave also matched the character of the cloud-splitting wolf. Within 100 feet of the cave, it had already turned into a pitch-black world. Obviously, this was the work of the cloud-splitting wolf. Moreover, Xiaoyan and Luo Jin could clearly feel that there was a restriction within the cave that could avoid all probing. Hence, unless they personally entered the cave, they would not be able to know what was going on in the cave. Without much hesitation, the two of them moved and entered the pitch-black mountain cave. At the same time, in the depths of the cave, the cyan-clothed man's eyes suddenly opened. The hand seals in his hands changed. Brr, 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 brr. A violent roar that shook the mountain was emitted from the man's mouth. The violent roar reverberated in the cave and traveled into Xiaoyan and Luo Jin's ears. Hearing this terrifying roar, Xiaoyan and Luo Jin's expressions changed simultaneously. However, the two of them were not ordinary people. After being shocked for a moment, Xiaoyan resisted the dizziness in his head and changed the hand seals in his hands. Then, Yellow Spring Divine Fury. Mo, 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 mo. Another roar resounded within the cave, completely suppressing the sudden roar that came out of nowhere. In the depths of the cave, when the cyan-clothed man heard Xiaoyan's violent roar, he frowned slightly and a trace of anger appeared on his face. He was a magical beast and a wolf-type magical beast that was most sensitive to roars. Xiaoyan's violent roar naturally infuriated him. The cyan-clothed man's body shook and he stood up from the ground. His eyes were immediately enveloped by a bloodthirsty killing intent. Xiaoyan's roar made him feel a sense of provocation. Hence, after standing up, his body shook again and he disappeared from the spot. If it were not for the pair of inch-deep footprints on the ground, anyone would have thought that the figure just now was just an illusion. The echoes in the cave gradually dissipated and Xiaoyan also stopped. Luo Jin was still a little dizzy, but his body shook and he regained his consciousness. Luo Jin first let out a long breath. After which he said to Xiaoyan, "Brother Yen Dong is really strong. The Dong Mountain roar of the cloud-splitting wolf is extremely powerful. Even an expert of the same level would have to be careful when dealing with it. If it was used at a close distance, using the echoes in the cave to cause the opponent to lose focus for a short period of time, there is a possibility that the cloud-splitting wolf would directly kill the opponent. However, it is unexpected that the Dong Mountain roar of the cloud-splitting wolf would be resolved by Brother Yanxiao. You are really powerful." The corner of Xiaoyan's mouth twitched when he heard this. This was originally a very simple matter. If an expert of the same level had to be careful, then he could only blame himself for not having a sonic do technique. Roar. Which rascal dares to come to Qinggang Mountain and provoke me, Yun Lang? Chapter 72. I have not written it for a couple of months. I don't know if I will be able to perfectly connect with the previous plots. This chapter might be a little better than the previous chapters, but I still hope that everyone can give me some opinions. It would be even better if there were a few recommendation votes. Hehe. Chapter 72. Fighting Yun Lang's furious roar was emitted from deep within the cave. The rumbling sound caused Xiaoyan and Luo Jin to feel a piercing pain in their eardrums. The muscles on their faces twitched involuntarily. Their expressions changed slightly. Xiaoyan and Luo Jin exchanged glances before their bodies quickly pulled back and retreated out of the cave. Ah. Since you have come, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Stay behind. Xiaoyan and Luo Jin had just retreated. They had yet to completely exit the cloud-splitting wolf's cave when Yunlang's ear-piercing roar was once again emitted. Yunlang's body suddenly shook from deep within the cave. The wild and violent dou qi within his body spread in all directions, causing the entire mountain to involuntarily shake. Yunlang's body suddenly disappeared. At the same time, the bodies of Xiao Yan and Luo Jin, who were retreating out of the cave, stilled. Xiao Yan's expression changed drastically. The dou qi within his body instantly surged to the surface of his body. The heavenly flame spat out and swiftly agglomerated into a heavenly flame armor on the surface of his body, protecting him within it. The footwork of Yunlang's feet changed as he unleashed the sky extinction step. His body flashed and a fist violently smashed toward Xiao Yan's back. Bang! An instant later, Xiao Yan's body flashed and appeared from a corner of the cave. His body involuntarily collided with the cave wall. With a bang, nearly 1/3 of the surface area of the enormous Qinggang mountain was destroyed. The outside world of the other mountains also had a dou qi barrier vaguely flickering, protecting the entire mountain within it. However, from the looks of it now, it was likely that even this tough dou qi barrier would not be able to endure for long. The power of this punch was actually so terrifying. Just the power of this punch was enough to blast apart a mountain, and this was only the result of Xiao Yan being sent flying. If this punch were to land solidly on this mountain, it was likely that in an instant, this 1,000 feet tall Qinggang mountain would instantly turn into a pile of dust. Luo Jin's heart was involuntarily startled when he saw Xiao Yan being sent flying. The expression on his face instantly became solemn. The true strength of this cloud-splitting wolf was actually this frightening. It had already exceeded his expectations. Luo Jin's face was filled with shock when he saw Xiao Yan being sent flying. Although he had not interacted with Xiao Yan for a long time, Luo Jin had a very good impression of Xiao Yan. Living outside, Luo Jin would naturally not give up on having another friend. Luo Jin's body moved and appeared in front of Xiao Yan in a flash. He helped Xiao Yan up and his spiritual strength followed Xiao Yan's palm and entered Xiao Yan's body to check on Xiao Yan's injuries. Who dares to spy on my primordial spirit? The spiritual strength had just entered Xiao Yan's body when a furious cry that contained a ruthless killing intent was emitted from Xiao Yan's body. Luo Jin's expression also suddenly became surprised. The instant the spiritual strength entered Xiao Yan's body, a wave of extremely hot flame energy suddenly charged toward Luo Jin's spirit. Luo Jin's expression was startled. However, he also knew that this fellow should be related to Xiao Yan. Hence, he did not recklessly charge in. Instead, he chose to withdraw decisively. Yes. Luo Jin controlled his spiritual strength and quickly withdrew. However, even so, Luo Jin's spirit was still eroded by the wild and ferocious flame energy. His entire body involuntarily trembled. His teeth were tightly clenched and the veins on his forehead were about to burst. Beads of sweat flowed out from the pores on his back, drenching a large portion of his clothes. Luo Jin's spiritual strength suddenly trembled. Only then did he regain his senses. His eyes still revealed an astonished expression as he looked at Xiao Yan. The flame energy was not very strong. This was why Luo Jin was not worried even though he was astonished when the flame attacked him. It was also because of this that when the flame attacked Luo Jin's spirit, it caused Luo Jin to instantly sober up. That flame actually possessed an extraordinary amount of damage to the spirit. While he was still staring at Xiao Yan in shock, Xiao Yan pushed him aside. A fist passed through Luo Jin's chest and bombarded Luo Jin's back. Bang! With an explosion, Xiao Yan's body flew backwards. Before he could stop, a figure appeared behind Xiao Yan. A fist was violently thrown toward Xiao Yan's back. Xiao Yan's body forcefully flashed and returned to Yunlang's side. The dou qi in his body surged out like floodwaters. With a thought, Xiao Yan's body suddenly transformed into a 99-foot-tall golden giant. The giant's entire body was covered with flickering purple-gold dragon scales. A pair of large fists had also transformed into dragon claws. A glint flashed in his bright golden glass-like eyes as a fist was suddenly thrown toward Yunlang. A wild and ferocious wind was accompanied by an overbearing fist that tore through space as it violently smashed toward Yunlang. The space became distorted wherever it passed and the land shook. An ear-piercing sonic boom caused the eardrums of all the magical beasts within a 1,000-mile radius to burst and fresh blood flowed. In an instant, the entire Lianyun mountain range had turned into a sea of blood. Yunlang did not feel much surprise in his heart at this powerful attack from Xiao Yan. His body explosively withdrew by 1,000 feet as he let out a furious roar at the sky. The tiny human body from a moment ago had transformed into a 1,000-foot-tall enormous beast in an instant. The cloud-splitting wolf was indeed worthy of being an 8-star half-martial emperor. With merely a glance, its enormous body had already covered over half of the sky. In an instant, the area within a circumference of 100 feet had turned dusky. At this moment, even Xiaoyan with his King Kong glass body was like an adult in front of a newborn baby in front of the cloud-splitting wolf. The cloud-splitting wolf let out a long roar as its body stood up like a human. Standing in the air, its large and sharp wolf claws ruthlessly swatted toward Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan's heart did not dare to slight this claw even a little. His body suddenly shook and a monstrous aura suddenly erupted from within his body. A thought passed through his mind and the large golden mouth suddenly widened. Yellow Spring Divine Wrath. Mo, mo, mo. The might of the Yellow Spring Divine Wrath shook the heavens. However, the cloud-splitting wolf did not show any signs of weakness as it opened its mouth and let out a heaven-piercing roar. Dong Mountain Roar. 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 The two attacks collided and the space suddenly shook violently. The space at the center was violently distorted for a while before it suddenly shattered and turned into a pitch-black void. As the space shattered, Xiaoyan's Yellow Spring Divine Wrath was the first to be destroyed by the Dong Mountain Roar and bombarded toward Xiaoyan. This was something that Xiaoyan had already expected. After all, this Yunlang was a genuine 8-star half-martial emperor. It would be difficult for him, a 2-star half-martial emperor, to engage in an all-out fight with him. The heavenly fire in his body suddenly gushed out and covered the entire giant golden fist. The intense heat caused the entire world to dry up in an instant. The forest below instantly turned into an endless sea of fire that spread in all directions. The ground also turned into cracked yellow soil and the hard rocks gradually melted into blazing hot magma. Earth astral flame explode. Once again Yunlang let out an explosive roar in his heart. A magma fire pillar surging with tyrannical and fierce flame energy suddenly gushed out from the earth vein. With a tyrannical aura that could tear apart space, it pierced a hole through the Dong Mountain Roar. When the fire pillar dissipated, the cloud-splitting wolf Yunlang was startled. After the fire pillar, Xiaoyan's enormous figure had already disappeared. There was only a gradually dissipating golden light where he stood. Octane Blast. Suddenly Xiaoyan's explosive roar sounded from behind Yunlang. At this moment, Xiaoyan's entire body danced as he charged toward Yunlang. At this moment, every joint in Xiaoyan's body had turned into the most powerful weapon. His moves were grand and fierce. His tyrannical power was strong enough to flatten the Qinggang Mountain with a casual strike. At this very moment, even Yunlang, who was standing in front of Xiaoyan, couldn't help but feel shocked by the strength of Xiaoyan's physical body. However, the cloud-splitting wolf was, after all, a magical beast. Magical beasts were naturally proud of their physical bodies. Now that it saw that a human's physical body was so tyrannical, how could the cloud-splitting wolf be willing to accept this? Not daring to underestimate him, the cloud-splitting wolf's body suddenly turned and evenly distributed all the strength in its body to every part of its body. The muscles all over its body tightened like steel, and its upright body instantly charged forward, fiercely colliding with Xiaoyan. How could the strength that was raised in an instant be able to forcefully push back Xiaoyan? The fierce collision caused the space between the man and beast to explode with a loud bang. The strength between the two was completely unleashed at this moment, causing the entire world to tremble in fear. Violent waves of air swept out, and in an instant, there were no clouds in the surrounding 1,000 miles. Although there was sunlight shining down, this world was still wrapped in a layer of ice aura that was like an icehouse, causing people to unconsciously feel fear in their hearts. The cloud-splitting wolf was, after all, an 8-star half-martial emperor. Its tyrannical strength allowed it to firmly stand in an undefeatable position. In merely a short moment, Xiaoyan was already somewhat strenuous. Looking back at the cloud-splitting wolf, although its aura was also somewhat unstable, it was much better than Xiaoyan. Seeing this, the cloud-splitting wolf couldn't help but coldly snort in its heart. The dou qi within its body gathered on its sharp claws, and the strength of its claws abruptly increased. The fierce dou qi exploded at the point of contact with Xiaoyan, and with a single claw, it sent Xiaoyan flying. However, at the instant when Xiaoyan was sent flying, the cloud-splitting wolf frowned in its heart. It felt that something wasn't quite right, but it was unable to pinpoint what it was. In the blink of an eye, it saw that Xiaoyan had been sent flying. Wasn't this a great opportunity? Just as it was about to step forward and give Xiaoyan a quick death, an intense feeling of danger suddenly rose in its heart. The dou qi within its body swiftly circulated throughout its entire body. Following which, its body suddenly shook, and a fierce and overbearing force suddenly shot out from the cloud-splitting wolf's claw. It exploded in the air, causing numerous black lines to appear in the surrounding space. Seeing this, the cloud-splitting wolf was instantly enraged. The force that it had forced out from its body earlier was actually a hidden force. Moreover, from the explosive nature of this force, if it were to really explode in its body, even if it wasn't seriously injured, it would at least leave behind a layer of skin. With a flash, Xiaoyan, who had yet to stop his body, was just about to make a move when a fierce fist wind shot over from the side. This cloud-splitting wolf had actually transformed back into its human form. However, the force of this fist was even stronger. Moreover, its speed was so fast that it was impossible to dodge. All he could do was forcefully receive it. In an instant, Xiaoyan gathered all the Do Qi in his body on the surface of his body. The Dragon Phoenix Ancient Armor and the King Kong Glass body were both activated to the maximum as he waited for the next attack. An ant's body actually wants to shake the heavens. You are really seeking death. Hand over your life. When the cloud-splitting wolf arrived in front of Xiaoyan, it involuntarily let out a cold laugh in its heart when it saw that Xiaoyan still wanted to make a final gamble. Following which, a fist violently smashed into Xiaoyan's chest. Crack, with a crisp sound, the King Kong Glass body suddenly burst apart. Xiaoyan also returned to his original size. However, the fist wind did not diminish in the slightest as it continued to violently smash into the Dragon Phoenix Ancient Armor on the surface of Xiaoyan's body. Bang! A muffled sound of flesh colliding rang out. Xiaoyan's body was like a cannonball as it flew back into the sky. However, Yunlang's body had already appeared above Xiaoyan, waiting for the final blow. At the critical moment, Xiaoyan's footwork changed once again. His body that was flying back suddenly disappeared, causing the ruthless fist behind him to miss its target. Ha! Yunlang frowned. He was also surprised that Xiaoyan had disappeared in an instant. Yunlang narrowed his eyes. An icy light flashed across his eyes. With his body to the side, Yunlang's sharp eyes scanned the surroundings. At the same time, Luo Jin had already recovered. However, he could not intervene in the battle between the two of them. Hence, he could only quietly wait by the side for an opportunity. In his heart, his opinion of Xiaoyan had also changed again and again in this short period of time. Xiaoyan looked ordinary, but his overall strength was far superior. Xiaoyan had many tricks up his sleeves. Just the sound wave Do technique alone was enough to make Luo Jin somewhat fearful. The profoundness of the Do technique was probably close to a human-rank Do technique. Although his family also had a sound wave Do technique, he really did not have one that could suppress one's soul and destroy one's body like Xiaoyan's sound wave Do technique. Seeing Xiaoyan's figure suddenly disappear from the sky, Luo Jin's expression changed once again. What kind of movement skill was this? It actually made Xiaoyan directly disappear from this world. Suddenly, Xiaoyan's clear voice leisurely entered Luo Jin's heart. Brother Luo Jin, you delay Yunlang here first. I will take the opportunity to sneak into his cave and find the heavenly jade essence before coming out to fight with you. Luo Jin's eyebrows twitched. Xiaoyan had actually already entered the cloud-splitting wolf's cave. However, now was not the time for him to think too much. The reason why Xiaoyan had fought with Yunlang from the beginning was probably to save some strength for himself later on. With this thought in mind, Luo Jin's impression of Xiaoyan in his heart once again increased. They had only met for 2 days and Xiaoyan was already able to do so much for him. If he did not befriend such a brother, it was likely that he would regret it for the rest of his life. Nodding heavily in his heart, Luo Jin's gaze suddenly became determined. He was an intelligent person and an emotional person. He would only repay Xiaoyan more for his efforts. When Xiaoyan's voice gradually disappeared from Luo Jin's heart, Luo Jin had already moved and charged towards Yunlang. Today, even if Xiaoyan was unable to find the heavenly jade essence, he would definitely endure until Xiaoyan came out. Chapter 73. Whether it's good or not, the reviews are the best. How do you feel after reading it? Please leave a review or something. If there are any inadequacies, time will correct them. At the same time, I hope that everyone can give me a recommendation ticket. Within the pitch-black cave, due to the cloud-splitting wolf special restriction, it was as dark as ink, making it difficult to discern the direction. Even with Xiaoyan's eyesight, he felt as though there was no light in this place. With a thought, the heavenly flame in his body instantly gushed out from the surface of his body. The towering flame illuminated the area within 100 feet of the cloud-splitting wolf's cave as though it was daytime. Within the cave, there were countless tunnels that extended in all directions. Due to the lack of sunlight for a long time, the interior of the cave was somewhat damp. Droplets of water dripped down from the ceiling of the cave. The dense space caused the movement of the water droplets to be somewhat sluggish. Xiaoyan's brows slightly furrowed. He was somewhat surprised by the strength of the restriction. The cloud-splitting wolf was truly extraordinary. If he were to fight with it in the cave, he would probably be defeated in less than 100 moves. There was no time to think too much. Once he entered this place, the time given to Xiaoyan would officially start counting down. Outside, Luo Jin would definitely not be able to hold on for long. Even if he had extraordinary methods, it would be useless under the absolute strength of the cloud-splitting wolf. With a flick of his finger, dozens of thumb-sized fireballs instantly shot out. Although the fireballs were small, the strength of the heavenly flame was not to be underestimated. In an instant, the clear water beside Xiaoyan turned into shattered rocks. That cluster of fire carried a wisp of Xiaoyan's spiritual strength as it flew into the interior of the mansion. Wherever it passed, the hard rock ground would be burned until it was completely red and cracked. Its aura was frightening. After the fireballs flew out, Xiaoyan did not relax. With a move of his body, he flew towards a tunnel without any fireballs. During the flight, Xiaoyan used his spiritual strength to investigate the surrounding environment. At the same time, he smiled and said in his heart, "What's wrong? You've finally woken up after sleeping for so long." Xiaoyan's words were naturally directed at Hui Yi. After a few months, Hui Yi's injuries had finally completely recovered. Luo Jin's actions had also completely awakened him from his slumber. Xiaoyan also told Hui Yi about Luo Jin's matter while the two of them chatted. Hui Yi's heart felt a little more grateful for Luo Jin's earlier actions when he heard Xiaoyan's words. To Hui Yi, Xiaoyan was the person closest to him. It was Xiaoyan who had created him. Since Xiaoyan had a good impression of Luo Jin, he would naturally follow Xiaoyan's opinion. Xiaoyan ventured deeper into the cloud-splitting wolf's mansion while they chatted. The deeper Xiaoyan went, the more a chill rose within his heart. In merely a moment, only 2 of the dozens of fire clusters that had Xiaoyan's spiritual strength attached to them remained. The rest had long since disappeared from this mansion. In the outside world, the battle between Luo Jin and Yun Lang was like a raging fire. Of course, even though this was the case, Luo Jin was clearly at a disadvantage. Even with his strength of a 4-star bandit, he was only able to last for 4 hours when fighting with Yun Lang. However, Xiaoyan was still shuttling through Yun Lang's mansion to search. It was likely that he would need quite a lot of time. This caused Luo Jin to involuntarily feel a little worried. If this continued, he would have already died before Xiaoyan could come out. At that time, it was likely that Xiaoyan would have difficulty escaping this calamity. Luo Jin's mind was spinning rapidly. However, there was nothing he could do. Yun Lang's strength was truly not something they could contend against. "Hey, what's wrong? You can't hold on anymore? Where's your companion? Tell him to come out. If the 2 of you work together, you might be able to hold on for a while longer. If it's only you, I'm afraid this is the only way." Luo Jin's aura had yet to stabilize when Yun Lang, who was 1,000 feet away, emitted a mocking smile from the corner of his mouth. His tone was icy cold as he mocked. Luo Jin's somewhat pale face suddenly became cold when he heard this. He let out a heavy cold snort. He flipped his hand and a strange palm-sized astrolabe appeared in his hand. The astrolabe looked ordinary, but it was engraved with mysterious patterns. In the middle of the astrolabe, there was a pattern that looked like the Big Dipper. A faint fluorescent light flickered, making the astrolabe even more mysterious. The Do Qi in his body suddenly moved. Luo Jin's body flashed and he appeared beside Yun Lang. The Do Qi in his body gathered on his palm. He let out a furious cry in his heart and threw the astrolabe in his hand violently toward Yun Lang. Yun Lang's expression involuntarily changed when he saw this scene. It was unexpected that Luo Jin was actually able to unleash such a quick speed under such circumstances. The 2 people who had come this time around possessed extraordinary skills. If he did not treat them well, it was likely that he would fail miserably at such an easy task. Yun Lang thought in this manner in his heart. He ignored the astrolabe in Luo Jin's hand. By the time he reacted, Luo Jin had already appeared by his side. A strong and overbearing Do Qi carried the astrolabe and violently smashed over. Although Yun Lang wanted to dodge, Luo Jin's attack had already arrived in front of him. He did not allow Yun Lang to do anything. His palm reflexively smashed toward the astrolabe in Luo Jin's hand. Although it was just a random attack, how could Yun Lang's strength be compared with Luo Jin's? When his palm was thrown out, the sky shook and the empty space shattered. The space where it passed turned into a vacuum. The sharp wind blew until the clothes on Luo Jin's body were tightly stuck to the surface of his body. The powerful strength caused his skin to feel a piercing pain. Luo Jin did not dare to be careless in his heart when he saw this attack. The dou qi in his body completely poured out. The might of the dou qi in his palm was extremely mighty and boundless. Bang! Suddenly the area where the two of them stood turned into an endless empty space. The cold sunlight instantly disappeared and only an endless darkness remained in this area. The big battle between the two of them had already entered the empty space. This vast area was already unable to endure their wild and violent collision. The true collision had only just begun. Suddenly, an extremely domineering wave of dou qi swept out from the endless void. Luo Jin's thin body was sent flying by this wave of dou qi. Fresh blood was spat out of his mouth as though it was free of charge. A couple of the ribs in front of his chest were also broken by this wave of dou qi. The clothes on his body were completely torn and the aura of his entire body had also become extremely weak. The full-strength explosion of an 8-star ban emperor was indeed not something that he could forcefully receive. Roar! A miserable wolf howl that resounded over the sky suddenly spread from the middle of the air wave. Luo Jin, whose aura was weak, was shaken by this sound until he instantly recovered. The muscles at the corner of his eyes twitched. The serious injuries within his body caused him to feel unbearable pain. However, after forcefully suppressing the waves of intense pain that were emitted from his body, a relaxed smile was lifted on Luo Jin's paper-like face. The wolf howl that reached the sky was accompanied by a monstrous fury as it reverberated over the sky. Even the solid ground shook because of this sound. Xiaoyan stopped moving within the cloud-splitting wolf's cave. He frowned as he looked at the ceiling. The cloud-splitting wolf's cave had actually swayed a little earlier. This caused Xiaoyan to involuntarily worry about Luo Jin's current situation. Old Gu, can you please take a look at Luo Jin's current situation? After all, his strength was limited. He could only ask Guyu for help in investigating. Guyu smiled upon hearing this. His tone carried an unknown meaning as he teased Xiaoyan. Little fellow Xiaoyan, do you really wish for me to help you investigate the situation of that little fellow outside? Xiaoyan lifted his eyebrows. His eyes continued to rotate. He felt a little uncertain about the meaning behind Guyu's words. Xiaoyan could only resolve the problem at hand after a long while of fruitless effort. A thought passed through his mind, and Guyu obtained Xiaoyan's answer. Haha, not bad. That little fellow's things are not bad. Although it is a little unrealistic for him to shake this cloud-splitting wolf, this is sufficient. Xiaoyan was about to continue asking after hearing this when Guyu changed the topic. He spoke to Xiaoyan. I advise you to hurry up. That little fellow's situation is still all right. However, if you continue to delay like this, the outcome may not be certain. Xiaoyan's expression changed, but he did not continue asking. His body moved and he instantly disappeared from the spot. He swiftly headed into the cave. Luo Jin glanced at the cloud-splitting wolf's cave. He frowned slightly. It seemed that those two things were not easy to find. Roar! You little rascals are too bold. Don't think that you can suppress me here with this great star plate. Once I break this great star plate formation, the first person I will kill will be you. Suddenly Yun Lang's hoarse roar, which was filled with an endless brutal murderous intent, was transmitted into Luo Jin's ears. This caused the expression of Luo Jin, who had just calmed down, to change once again. The Great Star Plate contained the Great Star 7-star formation. It was specially used to suppress the strength of one's opponent. Its strength could not be underestimated. However, the one in Luo Jin's hand was only a replica that could be used on the continent. It was clearly impossible for it to completely suppress the cloud-splitting wolf. Luo Jin exhaled a long breath of turbid air. He stood up from the ground. His body flashed and appeared outside of the Great Star Plate formation. His face revealed a determined expression. Within the Great Formation, Yun Lang involuntarily let out a cold snort when he saw Luo Jin's unfathomable appearance. He did not believe that Luo Jin, who was on the verge of serious injuries, would have any means to deal with him. However, in the next moment, Luo Jin slammed his palm on his chest. He opened his mouth and a blood arrow shot out. Luo Jin caught it with his palm. He pointed his finger and the blood in his palm slid down from his fingertip. After a few movements, a palm-sized blood seal appeared in the space in front of Luo Jin. After doing this, Luo Jin placed his palms together. His fingers continuously moved. One after another, mysterious seals were formed and merged with the blood seal. After thinking through 300 seals, Luo Jin had already formed over 300 seals. When the last seal was formed, Luo Jin flipped his palm and his palm merged with the seal. Suddenly the world shook. Dark clouds appeared in the sky. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. Within a radius of 100 feet, Wild winds rose and the birds and beasts scattered. Luo Jin's tattered robes fluttered without wind. His aura was as strong as before. It was even stronger than when he was at his peak. At this moment, Luo Jin's strength was equivalent to a 5-star half-emperor. However, this was not the end. Standing in front of the cloud wave, the seals in Luo Jin's hands changed once again. This time around, the seals were extremely powerful. Every time he formed a seal, it caused circular ripples to spread out in the air. One look and one could tell that Luo Jin's next move would be extraordinary. Chapter 74. I hope that you can forgive me for being a little slow in writing. Additionally, I would like to ask for your comments. Please vote. Time does not ask for anything other than a vote. Thank you very much. Xiaoyan's body stood at the end of the cave within the cloud-splitting wolf's cave. The solid rock wall in front of him caused Xiaoyan to feel extremely doubtful. There was no other path to take after reaching this place. The 2 clusters of flames were still moving deeper into the cave. Could it be that this was a dead end? Xiaoyan sensed the movement of the 2 clusters of heavenly flames. After which, he looked at his current situation and felt a little depressed in his heart. Xiaoyan's eyes viciously stared at the rock wall in front of him. The expression in his eyes changed slightly as he asked Guyu in his heart. Old Gu, can you investigate what is behind this rock wall? Guyu let out an evil laugh, but he did not speak. Xiaoyan lifted his brows. He did not understand this reaction. However, Xiaoyan was an extremely intelligent person. He reacted an instant later. The corner of his mouth involuntarily twitched. He was a little speechless at Guyu's words. Guyu laughed in response. He randomly teased a little before returning to silence. This caused Xiaoyan to feel helpless. Xiaoyan bent his legs and sat on the ground. The surging spiritual strength in his mind swiftly spread and covered the entire Qinggang mountain. Xiaoyan's spiritual strength might be powerful, but Xiaoyan was unable to detect any traces of the meteoric flame mysterious iron despite being covered in such a comprehensive manner. This was contrary to Xiaoyan's wishes. Helpless, Xiaoyan's spiritual strength swiftly locked onto the 2 clusters of flames that were still moving. Xiaoyan quickly absorbed them into his eyes. His powerful spiritual strength was split into 2. The surroundings of the 2 clusters of flames were reflected in Xiaoyan's eyes. Everything was the same. He could not see the end of the dark black and endless cave. He could only continue forward in order to investigate. At the same time in the outside world, the originally abundant Do Qi in his body swiftly withdrew like floodwater following the rapid change of the seals in Luo Jin's hands. His aura, which had just stabilized, gradually weakened at this moment. Threads of natural energy that were visible to the naked eye swiftly approached Luo Jin. When they were within an inch of Luo Jin's palm, they disappeared in a flash and turned into nourishment for the Do skill in his hand. Luo Jin's Do skill was clearly not ordinary. Even with his current strength that was comparable to a 5-star half-martial emperor, the supply of Do Qi within his body was actually somewhat weak. At this moment, Luo Jin's teeth were tightly clenched. The veins on his forehead were bulging and his face was flushed red. His body was trying its best to squeeze out the little hidden Do Qi in each of his cells. Following the continuous squeezing of the Do Qi in his body, Luo Jin could clearly feel that the muscles all over his body were emitting a kind of soreness that was difficult to endure at this moment. Waves of exhaustion and powerlessness also involuntarily rose from the bottom of his heart. Even though this was the case, Luo Jin still forcefully endured the soreness in his body. He forcefully controlled his fingers, which were already not very nimble, and carried out the final finishing step. At this moment, Luo Jin could be said to have really reached the point where he was like a lamp that had run out of oil and was at the end of his rope. However, for the sake of Xiaoyan, the thread of obsession in Luo Jin's heart allowed him to persevere in such a manner. He continued to break through his limits and reach a level that he had never reached before. To be able to allow himself to enter a truly weak state, squeeze out all the functions of his body and break through his limits at the same time, such a person could be called an ambitious and ruthless person. If Luo Jin and Xiaoyan were able to leave this place alive after this battle, Luo Jin's future achievements would definitely not be bad. To be able to break through his limits and endure the difficulties of life and death, how could such a person be mediocre? Roar. Within the large formation, the expression on Yunlang's face immediately became intense the moment he saw the seal in Luo Jin's hand. With his eyesight, he was naturally able to tell that the Do technique that Luo Jin was about to use at this moment was definitely a man-class Do technique. Moreover, seeing Luo Jin's strenuous manner, it was likely that this Do technique was not weak even when placed among the man-class Do techniques. Yunlang, who had transformed into a human, once again returned to his original form. The restrained Do Chi within his body suddenly erupted and collided with the restriction within his body in an attempt to break out of the formation. However, how could this Tai 17-star formation be so easy to break? Although it was not the real thing, it was likely that even with Yunlang's strength, he would have difficulty breaking it if he did not exhaust 30 to 40% of his strength. When the Do Chi within Yunlang's body surged and erupted, a wave of bright light suddenly erupted from the star plate that was suspended in midair. Numerous celestial thread-like cream-white energy lines shot out from the middle of the star plate and wrapped around Yunlang within them. The celestial threads directly passed through Yunlang's body and passed through his chi paths wherever they passed. The Do Chi within his body would be absorbed by the celestial threads and turned into a part of his strength. The celestial threads broke through all difficulties and reached Yunlang's vortex. Within a couple of breaths, Yunlang's Do Chi was completely sealed. However, Yunlang's strength was not weak. Even with the star plate suppressing him with all its might, he was still unwilling to give up. Without his Do Chi, his strong body was still his strongest weapon. Bang! Yunlang's sharp claws continuously slashed at the immortal threads. The threads, which were as thin as hair, were all reduced to shreds by Yunlang's claws. However, just as hope rose in Yunlang's heart, they rapidly recovered. Yunlang's bombardment was like a huge fist striking cotton, and there was no return. At this moment, the seal in Luo Jin's hand finally came to a perfect end. His pale face did not have the slightest trace of blood. There was a layer of crystallized Do Chi covering his entire hand. The crystal hand contained 7 colors and looked extremely beautiful. Its crystal clear bright luster was naturally the favorite of a girl. However, under this crystal clear luster, spatial cracks that were visible to the naked eye began to appear around the crystal palm. Even the space dozens of feet around Luo Jin's body could be clearly seen ripples appearing like water ripples. Luo Jin's right palm was aimed at Yunlang from a distance. The powerful strength caused the already shaky space around his palm to instantly collapse. The powerful aura shot toward the sky. Luo Jin's dim eyes stared at Yunlang with great difficulty. His right palm was slowly pushed forward as a sentence was spat out from between his colorless lips and teeth. Silent destruction palm. Luo Jin spat out these 3 words in a soft manner. Suddenly the sky shook and the wind rose. The crystal hand that was as beautiful as a work of art fell from Luo Jin's palm and flew toward Yunlang. When this palm flew out from Luo Jin's palm, all the medium between the sky and the earth seemed to have been instantly absorbed by it. Although the wind and clouds swept over the sky, not the slightest sound of wind or thunder could be heard. Even Luo Jin's weak breathing felt as though it had disappeared. The sparkling and translucent crystal palm slowly streaked across the void, leaving behind a long rainbow trail. This scene was rather gorgeous in the sky. However, under this gorgeous appearance, who would dare to belittle this sparkling and translucent jade palm? Silence. A silence that was filled with death. Everything was instantly solidified. Even the sky, which looked down on all living things, had finally withdrawn its high and mighty attitude in front of this crystal clear hand. All that remained was respect. What was called shaking the sky and the earth? What was called exterminating all living things? The scene in front of them could be interpreted by these 2 principles. At this moment, Yunlang, who was within the large formation, had finally calmed down. It was not that he was intimidated by the might of this silent destruction palm. However, what stood in front of him was after all a true man-class Do technique. Even with his strength, he could not be the slightest bit careless when dealing with it. He tried his best to turn his body to one side. Without any Do Chi, his cloud-splitting wolf's frightening physical body was still able to block this frightening attack. Bang! A roar that shook the sky was once again emitted from the endless empty space. Mixed within it was the miserable howl of the cloud-splitting wolf, which sounded extremely sharp. Large amounts of fresh blood came from between the countless number of immortal threads. Wave after wave of incomparably powerful air waves swept out from the center of the explosion. Luo Jin's originally shaky body was sent flying by this attack. He was like a kite with a broken string as he fell to the ground. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. The painful howl of the cloud-splitting wolf that resounded throughout the sky finally gradually disappeared. It was trapped in the same spot as it slowly recovered. A cluster of palm-sized human-shaped flame was swiftly shuttling through the spacious cave within the cloud-splitting wolf's cave. The dark cave seemed to have no end. Even with Xiao Yan's speed, he still did not gain anything after shuttling for nearly 2 hours. While Xiao Yan was feeling impatient in his heart, a dark black stone wall once again appeared at the edge of his sight. Xiao Yan's frown, which had yet to relax, immediately deepened when he saw this. An impatient expression flashed across his eyes. His heart was about to step back and investigate the other cluster of heavenly flames. Hee, what is it? Without the old me leading the way, do you not even believe in your own eyesight? Suddenly, Gu Yu's mocking voice once again rose within Xiaoyan's heart. This caused Xiaoyan to pause as he was about to withdraw his spiritual strength. A glint flashed across Lin Dong's eyes. The expression in his eyes changed as he looked at the deepest part of the cave. The body formed by the heavenly flame gradually approached the deepest part of the cave. In a short moment, it had arrived in front of the cave. The stone wall was completely made of mountain rocks. No matter how one looked at it, it seemed to be one with the mountain. How could it hide anything else? Xiaoyan frowned slightly. However, he did not doubt Gu Yu's words. Since the latter dared to say such a thing, there was definitely a reason behind it. Lin Dong did not hesitate. Luo Jin in the outside world was already at his limit. He could not hesitate any longer. Regardless of the result, he needed to see what was behind the stone wall. The strength of a heavenly flame was naturally unparalleled. Regardless of how hard the stone wall was, it would instantly melt like ice meeting fire in front of the heavenly flame. Xiaoyan, who was formed from a heavenly flame, wildly threw a pair of large fire fists forward. Although it was not his actual body, a heavenly flame was still a heavenly flame. The natural strength could not shake it. This seemingly ordinary punch caused the entire Qinggang mountain to tremble. The mountain, which had been blasted by Yun Lang and Luo Jin one after another, was bombarded by Xiaoyan's punches one after another. The mountain rocks, which were already filled with countless number of cracks, instantly crumbled like ripe wild fruits on a tree. They followed the mountain and rolled to the ground. Following Xiaoyan's swift attacks, the thick rock wall was forcefully broken open by Xiaoyan. However, there was a solid light curtain at the end of the rock wall that blocked Xiaoyan's path. There was no need to think too much about it. Xiaoyan was able to understand the reason behind this. No wonder he was unable to find it no matter how hard he tried. Yunlang's technique was indeed the technique that Xiaoyan had seen the most in his life. Given Xiaoyan's current strength, it was likely that he would have to put in a lot of effort in order to completely break this thin light curtain. However, the current situation did not allow Xiaoyan to make any more preparations. He needed to go all out if he wanted to leave this place alive. Both of Xiaoyan's golden bright flame eyes suddenly brightened. Both of his fists were tightly clenched. The strength of the heavenly flame all over his body gathered on his right fist. A powerful and overbearing heavenly flame aura swiftly spread. Everything in the surroundings instantly became scalding hot. After the dark rock wall emitted a crisp sound, it shattered into pieces and shot out. The atmosphere in the entire cave suddenly rose to the peak in an instant. Octane blast, explode. Bang. Following the explosive cry in Xiaoyan's heart, the large flame fist suddenly collided with the light curtain in front of him. Circular ripples swiftly spread out like water waves. The powerful force caused the entire Qinggang mountain to shake 3 times. Crack. A clear sound appeared. Xiaoyan's large flame fist was in a stalemate with the light curtain for a long time before the light curtain was finally shattered by Xiaoyan's attack. The item within was exposed to the air. Xiaoyan suddenly looked over. What entered his eyes was a piece of black mysterious metal that was at least 30 feet long. This mysterious metal was undoubtedly the flaming meteorite mysterious metal. The cloud-splitting wolf, who was resting with its eyes shut in the endless empty space in the outside world, suddenly opened them when the light curtain that was protecting this place shattered. A fury that wanted to kill the heavens shot out from deep within its eyes, causing the space in front of it to become distorted. Chapter 75. Something happened yesterday, so I was unable to update. I will make it up today. I hope that I will be able to gain everyone's favor. Perhaps some of you are wondering why there is no Xiaoyan's posturing convention. Previously, I did not know how to write because I did not have enough ability. If I have time in the future, I will rewrite the previous chapters. Of course, the content will not change, but the plot will be better. I hope that it will satisfy everyone's eyes. Finally, I will naturally ask for your recommendation votes. Give me some comments or something. This is my greatest wish. Perhaps no one will read these words, but this is really my only wish. Please, everyone. Flaming meteorite mysterious metal. Xiaoyan immediately felt an excitement in his heart when he saw the thick, dark black mysterious metal in front of him. At this moment, the huge rock that had been hanging high in Xiaoyan's heart finally fell. Once he found the flaming meteorite mysterious metal, the heavy Shen ruler would be able to be repaired. Moreover, the only thing he missed in the other world would also be preserved. How could this not cause Xiaoyan to be excited? The heavy Xian ruler carried too many beautiful memories of Xiaoyan. This was something that Xiaoyan would never forget in his life. During the days when he carried the heavy Xian ruler and trained in the Jiama Empire, he and Yao Lao had charged into the empire's borders alone. They had passed through the magical Beast Mountain range, trained in the Tager Desert, and fought in the Misty Cloud Mountain. Pan's gate of the Jianan Academy rose. One ruler broke through 10,000 kilometers. Flames swallowed the world. A mysterious tablet was erected in front of the blazing sky tower. One ruler and one person charging into the central plains alone. The Wind Lightning Pavilion and the Hall of Souls. These were the days that Xiaoyan had spent with the heavy Xian ruler when he was growing up. How could he forget them? Among them, the badge that Sun Er had drawn for Pan's gate. The huge ruler and green lotus on it appeared to be a scene from yesterday in Xiaoyan's eyes even until now. Forget? How could Xiaoyan forget? On what basis should he forget? The heavy Xian ruler was personally given to him by Yao Lao. The ruler technique was also personally taught by Yao Lao. As for the D-Class Do technique 6-joint body flowing ruler, it was second brother Shaoli who took the risk of offending a tier 6 alchemist to forcefully buy it for him. Although the ending was acceptable, how could the deep brotherly affection within it be so easily forgotten? In Xiaoyan's heart, the dark heavy buster sword was no longer a weapon. It was his spiritual sustenance. If there was a chance in the future, Xiaoyan would definitely let everyone in the Yuanwu continent witness the glory of the dark heavy buster sword. These words were not a joke. Xiaoyan swore in the name of the Flame Emperor that he would never regret it. Xiaoyan was startled as he stared at the flaming meteorite mysterious metal in front of him. The body that was agglomerated from the heavenly flame suddenly exploded. The powerful heavenly flame, in addition to Xiaoyan's frightening D-state soul, caused this space to endure for a couple of breaths before it finally shattered and revealed a mysterious space. A powerful soul power condensed into a huge palm in the air and threw the meteorite mysterious iron into it. The thing that surprised Xiaoyan was that even with his frightening strength, he still felt a sense of heaviness when he used his spiritual strength to lift the meteorite mysterious iron. Xiaoyan did not have much time to bother about it. His spiritual strength swiftly returned to his body. His body flashed and he was already standing in front of the rock wall. His right fist was tightly clenched and the Do Qi within his body swiftly agglomerated. A glint flashed across Xiaoyan's eyes as a punch was thrown forward. Octane blast. Break it. A stern cry sounded and a frightening wind forcefully tore through space. The rock wall dozens of feet around him instantly collapsed. An enormous rock fell from above Xiaoyan's head. It had yet to reach within 10 feet of Xiaoyan when it suddenly exploded and turned into dust that scattered in all directions. Bang! If nothing unexpected happened, the rock wall in front of Xiaoyan was instantly shattered into a pile of dust. When it collided with the Do Qi light curtain, circular water-like ripples spread apart. However, it was not affected in the slightest. Xiaoyan emitted a cold snort in his heart. His body moved and a punch was quickly thrown out before the ripples disappeared. It violently smashed into the Do Qi light curtain. Bang! That Do Qi light curtain was extremely firm when the attack was thrown out. Circular ripples continued to spread from the point where Xiaoyan's fist and the light curtain made contact. However, nothing happened. The endurance of this light curtain caused Xiaoyan to feel surprised. However, the more this was the case, the more certain Xiaoyan was that the heavenly imperial jade essence was behind this light curtain. After all, the heavenly imperial jade essence was much more attractive to the cloud-splitting wolf compared to the flaming meteorite mysterious iron. Strength was the true Tao master of this world. Xiaoyan's actions became even sharper as he gained confidence in his heart. Fist met fist and a series of Do skills were swiftly thrown out. The ripples on the light curtain did not cease. Under Xiaoyan's all-out attack, before one wave of energy ripples could scatter, another wave had already overlapped. Under the layers of suppression, the light curtain under Xiaoyan's fist finally became increasingly transparent. The things within it were also vaguely reflected in Xiaoyan's eyes. While Xiaoyan was using all his strength to attack the Do Qi light curtain, the battle situation in the outside world, which had just stabilized, finally underwent a change once again. Roar! Little rascal, you actually dare to attempt to snatch the treasure of my cave. You are really seeking death. Suddenly, a shocking thunderous explosion spread in all directions within the endless empty space. It shook the entire Lianyun mountain range until it trembled. The countless number of magical beasts that had already died exploded under this thunderous roar at this moment. They turned into a bloody fog that scattered in all directions, causing the entire Lianyun mountain range to appear like an azure purgatory that was incomparably bloody. The star plate above the cloud-splitting wolf's head also exploded with a bang under this attack. The celestial silk that restrained the cloud-splitting wolf also instantly turned into specks of starlight that scattered between the sky and the earth. Luo Jin, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground and recovering, suddenly opened his eyes. His heart involuntarily tightened when he saw the cloud-splitting wolf escape from the restraints of the star plate. Had Xiaoyan's location been exposed in the end? However, Luo Jin did not think much of it. After all, Xiaoyan had already entered the cave for such a long time. If the cloud-splitting wolf had not discovered him, it could only mean that the cloud-splitting wolf was too stupid. Standing up, Luo Jin flipped his palm and a pill the size of a longan appeared in his hand. His heart ached as he glanced at the pill in his hand. The corners of Luo Jin's mouth involuntarily twitched. Evidently this pill was not ordinary. Otherwise Luo Jin would not have felt such heartache. Heartache was one thing, but in the current situation he had to survive. If he died, what was the use of this pill? Luo Jin placed the pill into his mouth. The pill melted as soon as it entered his mouth, turning into an extremely gentle energy that instantly spread throughout his entire body. The few broken ribs in his chest rapidly healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. The injuries in his body also gradually recovered under the medicinal effects of the pill. Although the effect of the pill was very fast, Luo Jin did not feel the slightest bit of discomfort during this process. This pill was indeed extraordinary. Roar! The cloud-splitting wolf's mouth suddenly emitted a fierce roar as he sensed the repeatedly recovering aura within Luo Jin's body. His body moved and charged toward Luo Jin. He also knew that if he was unable to finish off Luo Jin, it was likely that he would be unable to stop Xiaoyan's intentions. Ha! Octane blast! Break for me! Within the cloud-splitting wolf's cave, in front of the dim Do-Chi light screen, a wild roar suddenly erupted from Xiaoyan's mouth. The Do-Chi within his body crazily surged into his fist. With an explosion, the solid light screen was finally forcefully shattered by Xiaoyan. Behind the light screen was another spacious cave. However, the difference between this cave and the previous one was that there was a thick and solid demonic flower standing in the middle of the cave. The demonic flower was sparkling and translucent, emerald green like jade. An enormous flower emitting a rich fragrance stood at the top. Its thick and solid roots were deeply embedded into the ground. Waves of pure natural energy slowly flowed up from its roots and disappeared into the demonic flower in a flash. Haha, good brat. Looks like your luck is quite good. With this thing, it is likely that you will definitely break through to a 3-star ban emperor. Moreover, if I am not mistaken, you will be able to stabilize your cultivation at the intermediate 3-star ban emperor level after absorbing its strength. How about it? This temptation should be sufficient for you, right? Suddenly, Gu Yu's unpredictable teasing words were once again emitted from Xiaoyan's heart. This caused the latter's expression to involuntarily change. 3-star ban emperor. This temptation could not be described as small. It should be known that once one's strength reached the ban emperor level, it would be extremely difficult to break through. Given Xiaoyan's current situation, it was likely that he would need at least 1 or 2 years to break through to a 3-star ban emperor without the help of an external object. At this moment, a demonic flower had solved 1 or 2 years of training for Xiaoyan. How could this not cause him to feel excited in his heart? Xiaoyan's body moved and stepped forward. A fire light flashed in his hand and a dagger formed from a heavenly flame appeared. Xiaoyan waved his hand and slashed with the dagger. Go ahead, go ahead. The old me wants to see just how you will destroy this heavenly imperial demonic flower. Before the dagger could land, Gu Yu's voice, which was filled with an inexplicable meaning, was once again transmitted. This caused Xiaoyan's hand to pause. Gu Yu's tone changed upon seeing this. He had an unfathomable appearance as he slowly opened his mouth and said, "The heavenly imperial demonic flower was originally a type of heavenly imperial flower. However, due to it growing on the heavenly imperial jade essence, it took root in the heavenly imperial jade essence and devoured the natural spiritual energy within the heavenly imperial jade essence for a long period of time. This resulted in it mutating into this form. If one wished to pluck it, one would need to use brute force to forcefully pull out the heavenly imperial demonic flower and the heavenly imperial jade essence from the soil. After which, one would need to cut off its roots. Only by doing so would one be able to perfectly refine it." Xiaoyan did not dare to slight this matter upon hearing this. His body flashed and arrived in front of the demonic flower. An explosive cry was suddenly emitted in his heart. His body immediately changed and the King Kong glass body was once again unleashed. The originally thick demonic flower appeared just like a small tree in front of this strong body. It could be shaken with just a little force. Both of Lin Dong's hands firmly grabbed the demonic flower. A huge force suddenly spread through every inch of the cave. Ha! A loud rumbling sound reverberated within the cave. The invisible wild and violent force caused the walls of the cave to crack apart. Many large spiderweb-like cracks formed on the ground around the demonic flower due to Xiaoyan's huge force. The roots of the demonic flower that were buried deep underground were vaguely visible. Bang! With a bang, Luo Jin's body flew out uncontrollably. Soon after, he viciously smashed into a towering mountain. This towering mountain also exploded with a loud bang from Luo Jin's collision. Huge rocks shot towards the horizon, before disappearing without a trace. One could imagine just how powerful the attack that Luo Jin had received was. Cough cough. Luo Jin violently coughed for a while as he climbed up from the ruins with great difficulty. Large mouthfuls of blood were spat out as if they were free. Faintly, one could see some blood-stained dregs. Clearly, those were Luo Jin's shattered internal organs. Luo Jin strenuously raised his eyes to look at Yunlang in the sky. A sense of powerlessness rose within his heart. An 8-star half-emperor was indeed worthy of his reputation. With his strength of a 4-star half-emperor, the gap was still too great. Although he felt helpless in his heart, when Luo Jin thought of Xiaoyan still in Yunlang's cave, a heroic feeling involuntarily rose within his body. Clenching his fists tightly, Luo Jin's body trembled slightly as he stood up. Unknowingly, Luo Jin had once again broken through his limits. Willpower was indeed something even more frightening than strength. At this moment, Luo Jin's body seemed to be filled with strength. His palms were placed together and the dou qi that had been drained from his body was completely released. Rays of dim light shot out from his palms and a surging will swiftly spread. When one looked at Xiaoyan again, the heavenly imperial demonic flower was pulled out as expected under his frightening strength. There was indeed a palm-sized emerald green rock at its roots. It was being entangled by a countless number of roots. Wave after wave of extremely pure natural energy was sent into the demonic flower's trunk through the roots. Casually picking the heavenly imperial jade essence, Xiaoyan's heart involuntarily surged. However, it was immediately forcefully suppressed by Xiaoyan. It would be a lie to say that he was not tempted by such a treasure. However, Xiaoyan was after all the Flame Emperor. At the very least, he still possessed this little bit of self-control. Xiaoyan would naturally not interfere with something that he had promised others. This was perhaps the reason why Xiaoyan was able to prepare helpers. Haha, not bad, not bad. Looking at the quality of this heavenly imperial jade essence, it seems that it has existed for quite a long time. It might not be 3,000 years old, but it should be around 2,700 years old. Xiaoyan's expression involuntarily changed upon hearing this. As long as Luo Jin could find an opportunity to refine this heavenly imperial jade essence, it would mean that he would be able to raise his strength by 5 stars. With such a treasure, it was no wonder that the external defenses were so strong. You should not think so much. 5-star strength, humph, is it possible? Guyu continued before Xiaoyan's expression could change. The reason this heavenly imperial demonic flower has been able to grow until now is all because of this heavenly imperial jade essence. Over half of the natural strength within it has already dissipated. Even if that brat refines it, his strength will at the very most reach the quasi-8-star Ban Emperor level. It will likely be difficult for him to advance even an inch further. Unless... Guyu did not say anything else after speaking until this point. He randomly dismissed Xiaoyan with a couple of sentences and ceased speaking. Xiaoyan's eyes landed on the heavenly imperial demonic flower. Chapter 76. Pei. Luo Jin and Yunlang stood in the air. Luo Jin violently spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. He used his torn sleeve to wipe his mouth, wiping away the blood at the corner of his mouth. Luo Jin's eyes were filled with hatred as he stared at Yunlang opposite him. He panted heavily as he raised his right hand towards Yunlang and made a disdainful gesture. This disdainful gesture naturally angered Yunlang. Ever since he had become an emperor, no one in the Lianyun mountain range dared to use such an attitude towards him. Today, Xiaoyan and Luo Jin could be said to have been repeatedly slapped in the face. How could he not be angry? Yunlang let out a long roar towards the sky. His body suddenly disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Luo Jin. His right fist was tightly clenched as he threw a punch towards Luo Jin's face. Luo Jin's expression involuntarily changed in the face of this sudden attack. His heart instantly tightened and even his heart stopped for an instant. However, Luo Jin was not an ordinary cultivator. Although he could not defeat Yunlang, he still had time to put up some defenses. The little dou qi in his body surged out and swiftly agglomerated into a thick circular shield in front of him, blocking Yunlang's attack. However, it was clear that Luo Jin had still underestimated Yunlang's strength. Although Yunlang's strength had decreased by 50% after several intense battles, how could an 8-star half-martial emperor be so easy to deal with? Even though Yunlang only possessed 50% of his strength, it was still not something that Luo Jin could withstand. The corner of Yunlang's mouth involuntarily revealed a mocking smile when he saw the thin dou qi that surged out of Luo Jin's body. His body shook and the dou qi under his fist swiftly agglomerated into a substance, wrapping around his entire fist. Its might could be said to be world-shocking. It tore through the air in an instant. The powerful wind caused the air to emit waves of ear-piercing sonic booms. Wherever the wind from the fist passed, the air would tremble and the air would shatter. The entire world trembled because of this punch. Bang! There was no powerful dou technique. There was only a simple punch. However, when it came into contact with the dou qi shield, the nearly substance-like dou qi shield was blasted apart in a destructive manner. Luo Jin's final defense was ultimately of no use. After his defense was broken, Yunlang's mighty punch did not slow down in the slightest as it charged towards Luo Jin's face. If this punch landed, Luo Jin would undoubtedly die. At this moment, Luo Jin's heart had calmed down. Although he had only been in contact with Xiaoyan for a short period of time, he could tell that there were many reasons behind Xiaoyan's desire to repair the heavy Xian ruler. It was also because of this that he had bitterly endured until now for Xiaoyan. He valued friendship, had extraordinary talent, and was possessed by the divine fire. Such a person would have a place in the Yuanwu continent sooner or later. Ah, Brother Yan Xiao, goodbye. With a miserable smile, Luo Jin closed his eyes and waited for Yunlang's punch to arrive. Swoosh! A thunder-like sonic boom suddenly sounded in the sky. Immediately, the dark clouds changed color and thunder clouds rolled. A wild and violent storm instantly engulfed the area. Yunlang's punch, which was originally just inches away from Luo Jin's face, missed due to this thunder-like sound, causing the space in front of him to shatter with a bang. Ah! This aura belongs to that human from earlier. Yunlang involuntarily frowned when his punch missed. Under the investigation of his powerful spiritual strength, the person who had arrived was Xiaoyan, who had sneaked into his cave. Xiaoyan supported Luo Jin with one hand and conveniently placed a medicinal pill into his mouth. After which he found a green rock and allowed Luo Jin to lean against it. Under the swift recovery of the medicinal strength of the medicinal pill, Luo Jin slowly woke up. He glanced at Xiaoyan and the expression on his face suddenly turned to joy. Although he was still very weak, he knew that the current situation was urgent and did not have the time to say anything. All he could do was use a somewhat hoarse voice to softly say, "Brother Yan Xiao, it's not good to stay here for long. You should leave quickly. You won't be able to defeat that cloud-splitting wolf alone." Xiaoyan could not help but be startled when he heard this. It turned out that this fellow thought that he had come out to save him before he found the item. However, even though he thought this way, his heart was more moved by Luo Jin's words. Xiaoyan smiled slightly and told Luo Jin to relax and wait for him at his original spot. With a flash, Xiaoyan had already arrived 1,000 feet in front of Yunlang. "Humph! You human are really courting death. You actually dared to steal my treasure. See if I don't tear you to pieces today. Die for me." Xiaoyan laughed when he heard this. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and sneered with a mocking expression. "Your item, heh? It was born from the heavens and the earth. How did it become your item? Moreover, natural treasures belong to the capable. Since you don't use it, don't blame me." Hearing Xiaoyan's words, the anger in Yunlang's heart grew. He could not help but laugh out of extreme anger. Good. What a good belong to the capable. What a sharp-tongued human. In that case, I want to see just how great your ability is that you are worthy of this heavenly demonic flower. Yunlang's hand rotated before his voice sounded. The dou qi in his body instantly surged out of his body and gathered in his palm. It was repeatedly compressed. The turbulent dou qi around Yunlang's body was like a wave that swept apart with Yunlang in the middle. This part of the world was also covered by this wave. Yunlang raised his right hand. Pure dou qi swiftly agglomerated in his palm. In merely a moment, a green jade-colored bead that was agglomerated from dou qi appeared in Yunlang's palm. Soon after, Yunlang's palm violently slammed downwards. 4C's wave. The spreading dou qi wave suddenly stilled as the palm struck down. It was as though time had forcefully stopped it. Soon after, however, a bright glow spread out from Yunlang's palm in a lightning-like manner. Bang! The world was annihilated wherever the light passed. The hot sun did not have any light and the empty space instantly collapsed. Even though this was the case, it was merely the remnant force of this Do skill erupting. Surprise involuntarily flashed across Xiaoyan's eyes when he saw this. The strength of this Do skill was actually this strong. Not daring to underestimate it, Xiaoyan swiftly raised the Do Qi within his body. He suddenly clenched his right hand and all the Do Qi gathered in his palm. His eyeballs rotated and a glow flashed across the depths of his eyes. The strength of the heavenly flame in his body suddenly erupted. Hui Yi, who was seated cross-legged within Xiaoyan's vortex, suddenly emitted a dazzling glow. Immediately, a bang sounded and it merged with Xiaoyan. Ha! With an explosive cry, Xiaoyan's tightly clenched hand slowly relaxed. A thumb-sized dark black round dot appeared in Xiaoyan's palm. Xiaoyan's body suddenly shook. In an instant, Xiaoyan had already forcefully broken through Yunlang's Do skill and arrived in front of Yunlang. Yunlang merely let out a cold laugh when he saw this. His left hand swiftly formed a seal. Soon after, a wolf howl was emitted from his mouth. It was the Dong Mountain Howl. Roar! The Dong Mountain Howl, which had an extraordinary strength, naturally subdued Xiaoyan with one blow. In his unconscious state, the current Xiaoyan was already equivalent to a fish on a chopping board, allowing Yunlang to kill him as he pleased. With a sneer, Yunlang's hand had already transformed into a huge wolf claw that violently grabbed toward Xiaoyan's head. With this claw, Xiaoyan would definitely die. Bang! Just as Yunlang's wolf claw was about to strike Xiaoyan's head, Xiaoyan's right palm struck his chest first. Before the palm was completed, Xiaoyan's fist once again violently smashed into the already stunned Yunlang's chest, sending him flying 1,000 miles away. Looking at Xiaoyan again, the current Xiaoyan had a pink demonic lotus deep within his pupils. There was a creamy white flame dancing repeatedly on top of the lotus, appearing extremely mysterious. The lotus disappeared and Xiaoyan's empty expression once again recovered its clarity. He gently shook his still giddy head and lowered his head to look at the scars left behind by the 4 seas. Xiaoyan involuntarily shivered. Even if he used the strength of the heavenly flame to defend himself with all his might, he was still unable to block it. Under the Dong Mountain Howl, Xiaoyan was naturally subdued until he lost his consciousness. However, Xiaoyan's loss of consciousness did not mean that Hui Yi was also subdued. With Hui Yi controlling his body, the great heaven creation palm in his palm naturally struck Yunlang's body. Roar! Rascal, you actually broke through to the 3-star half-martial emperor realm with the help of the heavenly imperial demonic flower. However, even so, you won't be able to escape death today. Also, that guy in your body, come out. Without giving Xiaoyan the slightest chance to react, Yunlang suddenly appeared in front of Xiaoyan from the horizon. His figure shook and transformed into his original form. His huge wolf claws viciously clawed at Xiaoyan's head. Xiaoyan's complexion suddenly changed. His figure dodged the attack. Before Xiaoyan could react, the cloud-splitting wolf's attack came again. Xiaoyan's footsteps constantly changed as he repeatedly used the sky extinction steps. In the distant horizon, a huge demonic beast could be seen pouncing everywhere. Waves of sonic booms reverberated between the heavens and the earth. Occasionally, a ferocious power would explode a mountain. This repeated again and again. The two of them had fought for over 700 exchanges. Xiaoyan's lightning-like frightening speed after his breakthrough caused Yunlang, an 8-star bandit, to feel an extreme headache. The two of them exchanged blows and were actually unable to determine a victor. Vaguely, there seemed to be something brewing within Xiaoyan's sleeves. It was only waiting for Xiaoyan to completely unleash it with a single thought. The heavenly flame within his body separated and transformed in his palm. Finally, it transformed into the appearance of the heavy Shen ruler. As the huge fire ruler was swung, it carried a fiery aura that scorched the horizon. When the cloud-splitting wolf's claw attacked, Xiaoyan also met it with a ruler. The attacks of the two were large and powerful. Although Xiaoyan's strength was inferior to the cloud-splitting wolf, he was still able to forcefully suppress it with the heavenly flame. Hence, it was difficult to tell who would emerge victorious. This was a battle of attrition where Do Qi was used. Endurance would be the main factor in the battle until the end. Xiaoyan's body suddenly flashed in the midst of the battle. The stable battle situation was suddenly broken by this action of Xiaoyan's. Flaming devouring tsunami. An explosive cry sounded as the huge fire ruler in his hand slashed horizontally in front of him. A beautiful flame wave suddenly shot out from the end of the ruler and smashed toward the cloud-splitting wolf. The cloud-splitting wolf's expression did not change when it saw this. Its pair of extremely sharp wolf claws slashed through the air. A forked Do Chi swiftly shot out and collided with the flaming devouring tsunami, resisting it equally. Bang! An explosion sounded. A wild and ferocious hot flame wave suddenly spread apart, engulfing both Xiaoyan and the cloud-splitting wolf. From this, one could imagine just how great the strength of this explosion was. Just as the flame wave swept across the sky, the air wave in front of Xiaoyan instantly split into two at the spot where he stood. A dark black mysterious light pillar suddenly shot out and smashed toward the enormous body of the cloud-splitting wolf. The dark black light pillar appeared ordinary. However, the space quietly collapsed wherever it passed. Even the endless empty space was swallowed by it. This seemingly random attack would instantly overturn the entire battle situation. This scene caused even Luo Jin, who was resting on the green rock, to involuntarily shift his gaze over. Immediately, the pale expression on his face instantly turned into surprise. The cloud-splitting wolf, who was standing in front of Xiaoyan, was naturally the same. Luo Jin rolled his throat with great difficulty. His dry lips curled slightly as he cried out in surprise in his heart. Just what kind of Do technique is this? It can actually swallow empty space. Chapter 77. The dark black energy pillar randomly pierced through the empty space. In merely an instant, it had already arrived in front of Yun Lang's enormous body. Yun Lang naturally did not dare to underestimate this attack. A man-class Do technique was no joke. Even with his strength of an 8-star bandit, he had no choice but to use all his strength to face a man-class Do technique. Yun Lang's enormous body turned and once again turned into his human form. Only in this state would he be able to make the quickest response. Yun Lang knew that he could not dodge this attack and could only accept it. Yun Lang's eyelids involuntarily twitched as he looked at the black light pillar that was getting closer and closer, revealing the restlessness in his heart. Under the black light pillar he could feel an extremely dense destructive force. This force was so strong that even the world would find it difficult to restrain it. Is it another man-class Do technique? I can see that the Do Chi in your body is already insufficient. You actually want to use a man-class Do technique to kill me. You are really dreaming. Yun Lang raised both of his hands before his voice sounded. The seals between his fingers changed rapidly. Numerous mysterious seals were thrown out one after another. The space in front of him also became distorted. The seemingly invisible space had become the most frightening defense at this moment. All the remaining Do Chi in Yun Lang's body poured out and gathered in his palm. His body also instantly became empty. A feeling of exhaustion and powerlessness rose in his heart. Yun Lang completely ignored this. He threw a palm forward and struck the space in front of him. The Do Chi in his palm seemed to have found a point to pour out and instantly filled the entire empty space. In an instant, a spherical Do Chi shield appeared around Yun Lang's body and covered him within it. However, this was not the end. This shield was actually absorbing the natural energy of this place and turning it into its own use. Big Dipper Guard. Xiaoyan's somewhat pale face immediately revealed a surprise when he saw this. He also had a new view of Yun Lang's strength. At this moment, Yun Lang had truly revealed all of his strength. It was not surprising for a bandit to control the world as his own. However, this place was ultimately the Yuanwu continent. The rule strength was different from the Do Chi continent. One still needed the strength of the Do Di class in order to freely control the world. Currently, this Yun Lang was actually able to control a part of the world as his own aid. This kind of ability was really rare. It was likely impossible to control a part of the world at the bandit class if one did not possess sufficient talent. The true strength of this cloud-splitting wolf could be seen. The shield in front of Yun Lang had just quietly formed when the 10 feet wide dark black energy pillar collided with it. Silence. Even the rustling sound of leaves being blown by the wind had disappeared. The entire world had returned to silence, just like the beginning of the primal chaos. No aura of life could be sensed, nor were there any traces of death. There was only an empty silence. The world was shocked when the two came into contact. The strength of this force was so great that even the world did not dare to create the slightest disturbance. The Do Chi within Xiaoyan's body was poured into his palm. A light flashed in his palm and the brilliant fire plate once again expanded. The dark black energy pillar also soared. A powerful and frightening strength suddenly erupted and eroded the shield. At the point where the Buddha's fury samsara collided with the shield, a terrifying tearing force was competing with each other. The black beam of light was constantly breaking down the world's energy above the shield, which was then devoured by the beam of light and turned into nourishment. The shield was also doing its best to swallow the natural energy in this place. The powerful tearing force turned all the natural energy within a 10,000 feet radius into a cluster of pure energy liquid that was suspended in the air above the shield. It was used to replenish the shield and resist the angry Buddha reincarnation. With the help of the natural energy, Yunlang was naturally incomparably relaxed. Although he appeared to be in a passive position, he was smiling as he looked at Xiaoyan as though he was watching a show. It was as though he could already see victory waving at him. In this way, Xiaoyan's aura finally became increasingly weak. The feeling of weakness in his body caused him to feel dizzy. However, his powerful spiritual strength continued to support him. Xiaoyan flipped his left hand, which had been idle all this while. A jade bottle appeared in Xiaoyan's palm. He crushed the jade bottle and over 10 Tier 9 energy recovery pills appeared in Xiaoyan's palm. Without any hesitation, Xiaoyan stuffed all of them into his mouth. In an instant, turbulent pure Do Qi surged into the vortex in Xiaoyan's body like a tidal wave. His exhausted Do Qi was finally recovered. On the opposite side, Yunlang's eyebrows twitched slightly when he saw this scene. Immediately, his expression turned ruthless. The Do Qi in his body poured out and he focused all of his attention on controlling the shield in front of him. He was incomparably clear in his heart that as long as he could block this attack from Xiaoyan, he would definitely be the final victor. Looking at Xiaoyan again, although he had the replenishment of the medicinal pills, they were after all only Tier 9 energy recovery pills. Regardless of how many there were, it was still a drop in the bucket for the current Xiaoyan. In an instant, the little Do Qi that he had just recovered once again disappeared. This caused Xiaoyan to involuntarily feel a little emotional. I'm afraid that I will need to find some D-tier medicinal pill formulas to use. With my current strength, just relying on Tier 9 medicinal pills is far from enough. Xiaoyan narrowed his eyes and stared at Yunlang, who was within the shield. The two of them looked at each other and the space suddenly became distorted. Even if a Bandi expert did not use Do Qi, just a gaze was able to cause the space to change. A Bandi expert was indeed extraordinary. They were actually this strong. Yunlang laughed mockingly. His aura suddenly soared and his powerful spiritual strength moved with a bang. His spiritual strength possessed the strength of an 8-star Bandi. Just a mere pressure was enough to destroy all of Xiaoyan's aura. Such strength was indeed worthy of being an 8-star Bandi expert. Xiaoyan's originally solemn expression instantly became much warmer when he saw this. The corner of his mouth was lifted into a mocking smile. If it was a battle of Do Qi with Xiaoyan, this point might make him extremely solemn. However, if it was a battle of spiritual strength, Xiaoyan could only laugh it off. Competing with an alchemist in terms of spiritual strength was like a skinny man wrestling with a giant. The outcome of the battle was naturally self-evident. When Yunlang's spiritual strength pressed down on Xiaoyan, Xiaoyan was not the slightest bit afraid. The spiritual strength in his body surged like the water of the Yellow River. In an instant, it condensed into a giant hand above Xiaoyan's head. With a thought from Xiaoyan, the giant hand that blotted out the sun instantly attacked and clashed head-on with Yunlang's spiritual strength. How terrifying was an alchemist's spiritual strength? Although Yunlang was an 8-star Bandi, his spiritual strength had only just advanced to the Emperor Realm. On the other hand, Xiaoyan had already advanced to the Emperor Realm 10 years ago. The gap between them could be imagined. Not good. This human spiritual strength has already stepped into the Emperor Realm for many years. It is not something that I can contend with. Yunlang's heart was suddenly startled when he saw Ling Tian's giant hand. The expression on his face suddenly changed. A frightened glint flowed deep within his eyes. A thought passed through his mind and he wanted to swiftly withdraw his spiritual strength. The change in expression on Yunlang's face was also captured by Xiaoyan. A cold smile was lifted from the corner of his mouth. The expression in his eyes suddenly became ruthless. Humph, do you think that it is still possible to retreat now? Emperor Realm Soul Skill Towering Hand. Towering Hand. This was a soul skill that Xiaoyan had found from the countless scrolls left behind by the Tushi ancient god. It was the top soul skill in the entire Do Qi continent. Xiaoyan had also mastered it. This towering hand was also quite useful to Xiaoyan. Now that it was used, its strength was also quite shocking. With a cold laugh, the seals in Xiaoyan's left hand swiftly changed. An instant later, that Ling Tian's giant hand moved according to Xiaoyan's thoughts. It grabbed Yunlang's vast and mighty wave-like spiritual strength in his hand. Yunlang also appeared to have suffered a heavy blow. His white skinny face instantly became distorted, appearing extremely terrifying. Yunlang's hands suddenly clenched tightly. He resisted the heart-piercing pain that originated from his soul. At the same time, he did not forget to control the shield in front of him to prevent Xiao Yan from taking advantage of the situation. The corner of Xiao Yan's mouth curled. This Yunlang was not stupid. He was even more clear-headed in the face of death. No wonder he was able to become the overlord of this Lianyun mountain range. With Yunlang's spiritual strength restrained, Xiao Yan naturally felt a little more relaxed. Coupled with his mountain of energy recovery pills, the situation became a little more stable for a short period of time. In any case, Yunlang was also the overlord of this area. His heart was filled with pride. How could he be willing to be controlled by Xiao Yan? Hardening his heart, all the muscles in his body tensed up like steel. He clenched his teeth and his eyes instantly turned abnormally scarlet. With a thought in his mind, a heaven-piercing roar sounded. The connection between Yunlang and that portion of spiritual strength was finally forcefully severed. Roar. Damned human die. Heavenly wolf howls at the moon roar. With an earth-shaking furious roar, Yunlang instantly transformed into his original form. He faced the sky and let out a long roar. Suddenly the color of the sky changed. The bright day instantly turned into a dusky darkness. A bright moon stood in the clouds, emitting threads of cold light. In the darkness, there was an enormous silver-white wolf standing behind the cloud-splitting wolf. Waves of frightening aura spread from the cloud-splitting wolf's body, causing Xiao Yan's expression to instantly change. Even Luo Jin, who was on the ground, had a grave expression at this moment. This cloud-splitting wolf actually possesses the heavenly ability of the Howling Moon Wolf tribe, Sky Wolf Howling Moon. This is going to be troublesome. The Do Qi in Brother Yan's body is currently weak. It will be incomparably difficult for him to defeat the cloud-splitting wolf. This cloud-splitting wolf also has the help of this bright moon. The speed at which it recovers its Do Qi is definitely not something that Brother Yan can compare with. I'm afraid that this battle is going to be dangerous. Luo Jin clearly had a better understanding of this move of the cloud-splitting wolf. Even so, there was nothing he could do about it. Although Luo Jin had some understanding of the Sky Wolf Howling Moon, it was only a superficial understanding. There was nothing he could do. Moreover, he was currently seriously injured and was unable to help Xiao Yan. If he were to forcefully charge forward, it was likely that not only would he not be able to help Xiao Yan, but he would instead become a burden to Xiao Yan. Although he felt helpless in his heart, Luo Jin still transmitted what he knew to Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan was naturally grateful for this. Although he did not know how to deal with the cloud-splitting wolf, his heart was at least somewhat confident. Hence, he was able to go all out when fighting. Xiao Yan sensed the gradually recovering aura on the cloud-splitting wolf's body. His heart involuntarily tightened. If this continued, it was likely that the cloud-splitting wolf would really be able to endure until the end. However, the medicinal pill replenishment was ultimately too little. No matter how one put it, the body of a bandit was not something that a Tier 9 medicinal pill could provide. His eyes flickered slightly. Although he felt a little reluctant in his heart, the situation dictated that if he did not use it, it was likely that he, Xiao Yan, would die here today. The tug-of-war between the angry Buddha reincarnation and the Big Dipper Guardian continued. A thought passed through Xiao Yan's mind and the fire seal between his brows flickered. Soon after, a cluster of dark black flames flew out from between Xiao Yan's brows and landed in Xiao Yan's palm. A frightening suction force spread from around the dark black flame the moment it appeared. All the medium in the sky moved with it and was forcefully sucked over. After which, it disappeared with a flash on the surface of the flame. Luo Jin's anxious and grave expression changed instantly when he saw this flame. His expression turned into a rich shock when he looked at the flame in Xiao Yan's hand. This is a heavenly flame. This is the second on the heavenly flame ranking, the Nihility Devouring Flame. Chapter 78. The Nihility Devouring Flame was a heaven-defying existence ranked second on the heavenly flame ranking. However, he had never expected that such a powerful independent existence would actually be within Xiao Yan's body. If news of this were to spread, it was likely that the entire continent would be in an uproar. That's not right. Although this heavenly flame possesses the aura of the Nihility Devouring Flame, the might of this flame and its devouring strength is far from being able to devour the world. A trace of doubt rose within Luo Jin's heart as he looked at the Nihility Devouring Flame in Xiao Yan's hand in the sky. This cluster of Nihility Devouring Flame was definitely not the essence of a heavenly flame. The expression in Luo Jin's eyes, which were looking at Xiao Yan, once again changed wildly when he thought of this. His eyes stared intently at Xiao Yan. His expression was filled with endless surprise. This flame is actually actually a wisp of the essence flame of the nihility devouring flame. It should be known that if Xiaoyan was able to completely devour and subdue the nihility devouring flame, it would only mean that Xiaoyan possessed extraordinary talent. In fact, such a heaven-defying thing was willing to follow him. However, this heavenly flame was merely a wisp of the essence flame of the nihility devouring flame. Although its strength was much weaker than the actual body, if Xiaoyan had relied on his own strength to obtain it from the actual body, it would really be enough to shock one's soul. Being ranked second on the heavenly flame ranking, how could the nihility devouring flame allow its essence flame to be taken by another? However, Xiaoyan was actually able to obtain a wisp of it. How could this not cause one to feel shocked? The strength of the nihility devouring flame was something that the entire continent was clearly aware of. Xiaoyan's attempt to forcefully obtain it was simply wishful thinking. Yet, Xiaoyan had actually taken out a wisp of the essence flame of the nihility devouring flame. This meant that Xiaoyan possessed a frightening talent that could cause the nihility devouring flame to be willing to give in to him. The cloud-splitting wolf, who was standing in front of Xiaoyan, was also surprised and uncertain. Its pair of bell-sized blood-colored eyes had been staring intently at the dark black flame ever since Xiaoyan had taken it out. It could sense an extremely frightening strength within the seemingly insignificant flame. That strength was sufficient to destroy this world in one strike. Xiaoyan held the nihility devouring flame in his hand and stood in the empty space in front of him. His heart suddenly recalled the black flame that had disappeared into the sky. That fellow. Old Bones said that he would obtain a good fortune. I wonder how he is doing now. However, I think that he should be doing better than me. Hee. Ah. Xiaoyan sighed in his heart. After which, he focused his attention on the nihility devouring flame in front of him. Although his heart was unwilling, he had no other choice given the current situation. An incomparably powerful spiritual strength entered the essence of the heavenly flame like a celestial thread. The frightening temperature, which could incinerate everything in the outside world, appeared to be nothing in front of Xiaoyan at this moment. His spiritual strength poured into the heavenly flame and swiftly found the spiritual imprint that he had left behind in the past. After hesitating for a moment, a thought passed through his mind. That spiritual imprint slowly disappeared in front of Xiaoyan's eyes. Although this scene was not seen by the cloud-splitting wolf and Luo Jin, they were able to roughly guess what had happened from the change in the aura of the heavenly flame. Xiaoyan had actually cut off the thread of connection with the nihility devouring flame in his hand. Damn it! Is this fellow crazy? That is the nihility devouring flame. How can he bear to just let it go? At this moment, even Luo Jin involuntarily spouted vulgar words in his heart. Xiaoyan's actions were really a great blow. Bang! A muffled sound appeared. Xiaoyan's spiritual strength was naturally withdrawn. The aura of the nihility devouring flame in his hand suddenly erupted. A burning will instantly filled the entire sky. The endless empty space suddenly became distorted. Luo Jin also instantly felt as though he had been thrown into a furnace at this moment. The skin on the surface of his body swiftly turned bright red, causing him to have no choice but to maneuver the little dou qi within his body to do his best to resist. The strength of the heavenly flame was actually this powerful. It was merely a 10 millionth of its actual body, yet it was actually able to stir an unusual phenomenon in the sky. This strength could be said to be terrifying. The moment Xiaoyan cut off his connection with the heavenly flame in his hand, in a dark and mysterious space tens of thousands of kilometers away, a black human figure, whose entire body was burning with a dark black flame and whose body was covered with mysterious symbols, suddenly opened his gently shut eyes. He looked in the direction where Xiaoyan was located. Has he cut off his connection with me? In this way there will be a lot of trouble in the future. However, this is just as well. Allow me to see if you, Flame Emperor, have the strength to force me to lower my head. From his words, this person was He Yen, who had disappeared into the sky after becoming an emperor back then. The strength of the heavenly flame completely erupted after the connection with the nihility devouring flame was severed. The endless devouring strength even devoured the empty space, turning it into a dark black void. Xiaoyan had controlled this wisp of heavenly flame essence for many years. Even though he had cut off his connection with it, it still danced gently in Xiaoyan's hand. Dou qi suddenly surged from Xiaoyan's hand. Half of the little dou qi within his body was poured into the heavenly flame by Xiaoyan. With the support of Xiaoyan's dou qi, the nihility devouring flame burned even more intensely. The entire place instantly became dry and hot. The originally tender green grass and trees on the ground were instantly turned into a pile of dust. Threads of natural energy visible to the naked eye appeared to have been guided by something. They wildly gathered toward the nihility devouring flame in Xiaoyan's hand. Huiyi, I will leave the refinement to you. Xiaoyan spoke to Huiyi in his heart. After which, he placed his attention on the angry Buddha reincarnation in his hand. The cloud-splitting wolf's heart involuntarily tightened when he saw the surging natural energy around Xiaoyan's body. It was unexpected that Xiaoyan actually possessed such a technique. If Xiaoyan really succeeded, it was likely that this big battle would be really dangerous. Bright moon attracting star. A long roar was emitted towards the sky. The bright moon in the sky suddenly emitted a bright light. Soon after, a moonlight strength descended from the sky like a bright meteor and landed on the surface of the cloud-splitting wolf's body. The aura of the cloud-splitting wolf suddenly soared. The exhausted Do Chi within its body also began to swiftly recover. One could see the cloud-splitting wolf once again emitting a howl towards the sky. That endless moonlight strength was like a waterfall of stars that was completely swallowed into its mouth. Soon after, a frightening aura of destruction was emitted from its mouth. Wolf howl 9 heavens, 8 wastelands destruction. Xiaoyan saw a bright white light cluster the size of a planet from the cloud-splitting wolf's mouth the moment it lowered its head. The bright light cluster suddenly erupted when it was aimed at Xiaoyan's angry Buddha reincarnation. A glaring light pillar suddenly shot out from its mouth. It instantly shattered the celestial barrier and violently collided with Xiaoyan's angry Buddha reincarnation. In an instant, Xiaoyan's angry Buddha reincarnation was easily shattered by that light pillar. Xiaoyan's body, which was standing in the air, was involuntarily pushed back by 1,000 feet by this powerful force. That bright white light pillar also charged forward with an unstoppable force until it was 100 feet in front of Xiaoyan. Only then did it slowly come to a stop. Even so, Xiaoyan was already completely exhausted. The devouring and refining of Huiyi behind him was indeed not enough. His strength was not at the level of a Ban Emperor. All the devouring and replenishing was useless to Xiaoyan. Ha 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 ha. Human. This is the result of provoking me, Yun Lang. You are just like an ant when fighting with me. Unfortunately, you are too arrogant. Don't think that you can fight with an expert who far surpasses you just because you have some strength and tactics. You must remember this point well. Remember not to provoke me, Yun Lang, in your next life. Ah ha ha ha. Human die. The cloud-splitting wolf looked at Xiaoyan, who was already at the end of his rope, and could not help but feel refreshed in his heart. Today he would definitely use the blood of Xiaoyan and Luo Jin to wash away his anger. The cloud-splitting wolf once again let out an earth-shaking howl. The bright white light pillar in his mouth suddenly shook. The strength within it became even more terrifying. The light pillar, which had just stopped, once again charged forward. The angry Buddha reincarnation would definitely be broken. Xiaoyan exhaled a long breath of turbid air in this moment of desperation. He looked at the approaching bright white light pillar and used a pleading tone to speak to Guyu in his heart. Elder Guyu, this junior knows that you will uphold your duty and will definitely not help this junior deal with the enemy. However, this junior has a request today. I hope that Elder can agree to it. Guyu could not help but feel a little curious when he heard this. As long as it did not violate his duty, it was fine to borrow something. However, the key was that he did not have anything to borrow. Feeling helpless, Guyu involuntarily asked Xiaoyan, "Tell me what you want. What do you want to borrow? If I have it, it is fine even if I lend it to you as long as it does not violate my duty." Xiaoyan's eyes brightened when he heard this. His heart involuntarily sighed in relief. His pale face finally became a little warmer. "Elder, this junior wishes to borrow your bone-chilling flame." Guyu's eyes changed slightly as he involuntarily cried out in surprise. However, he quickly laughed. "I have nearly forgotten that you still have your strongest Do skill, the angry Buddha lotus flame. Haha, as long as you possess a sufficiently powerful heavenly flame, forget about a man-class Do skill. It is likely that you will not even need to worry about a higher-class Do skill." A cluster of dense white flames appeared in front of Xiaoyan before his voice sounded. Xiaoyan thanked Guyu in his heart upon seeing this. After which, he once again focused his eyes on the nihility-devouring flame. Xiaoyan widened his large mouth and a wild and violent suction force was emitted from it. He swallowed the nihility-devouring flame. The flame art chi method within his body was swiftly circulated. Within a couple of breaths, the natural energy around Xiaoyan had been completely swallowed by Xiaoyan. Angry Buddha reincarnation explode. Xiaoyan's face gradually recovered its rosiness as he sensed the abundant Do Chi within his body. His right palm suddenly shook and a surging Do Chi suddenly shot out. The dark black light pillar trembled for a moment under the enormous force before it suddenly exploded at the end. The white light pillar was also forcefully shattered into a countless number of pieces by this vast and mighty force. An instant later, a wild and violent heat wave that incinerated the sky suddenly swept over the place. This time around, the cloud-splitting wolf was a lot smarter. Having suffered once, it was only natural that it would not suffer a second time. The large wolf had let out a long howl towards the sky. An endless amount of moonlight scattered down from the bright moon. Immediately, it was swallowed by the cloud-splitting wolf. On the other side, Xiaoyan controlled the bone-chilling flame with one hand and threw the nihility-devouring flame with the other. A thought passed through his mind and the heavenly flames within his body suddenly poured out. 4 clusters of flames appeared in front of Xiaoyan. Bone-chilling flame, nihility-devouring flame, purifying demonic lotus flame. The last cluster of flames, D-flame. The angry Buddha lotus flame this time around would definitely be the most powerful combination Xiaoyan had ever created since he had created the angry Buddha lotus flame. The top 3 heavenly flames on the heavenly flame ranking, Guyu and the bone-chilling flame, would become Xiaoyan's strongest killing move. Is this really going to work? You've never tried it before. Moreover, given the current condition of your body, can you really do it? Huiyi's voice was suddenly transmitted from the side, causing Xiaoyan's expression to pause. He naturally felt an incomparable pressure when he held such an enormous strength in his hand. The dou qi that Xiaoyan had refined earlier was not pure enough due to time. Hence, it would be even more difficult for Xiaoyan to merge the heavenly flames. Xiaoyan did not dare to hesitate even a little. Although Huiyi's words were true, the current situation was like this. If Xiaoyan did not go all out, only death would await him. However, Xiaoyan's heart was not limited to this. There were even more mysterious places in the Yuanwu continent that were waiting for him to unearth. How could Xiaoyan be willing to stay in this place? Guyu's duty, the black-robed person's pursuit. These were all questions that Xiaoyan had in his heart. Was it fate or a trap for him to become an emperor? Why was the black-robed person so familiar with him? These were all questions that Xiaoyan was most unwilling to accept. Hence, he must continue walking down this path. Sooner or later, he would part the clouds and see the source of everything. Chapter 79. Xiaoyan flipped his hands. After which, he violently slapped them together and forcefully merged the nihility-devouring flame and the bone-chilling flame. The collision of the 2 types of heavenly flames caused the space around Xiaoyan to fluctuate intensely. The powerful strength that erupted from the forceful merger caused the web between Xiaoyan's thumb and index finger to crack a little. Traces of fresh blood had yet to seep out when they were swiftly dried and formed into scabs by the frighteningly high temperature. At this moment, Xiaoyan did not have the mood to bother about this. His frightening spiritual strength poured out as he tried his best to control the heavenly flames in his hand. He tried his best to stabilize them at an equilibrium point. The 2 types of heavenly flames were finally gradually merged together by Xiaoyan. The strength of the heavenly flames caused Xiaoyan to feel as though this was the first time he was undergoing the merger process. Although he was familiar with it, he was also a little unfamiliar with it. The 2 types of heavenly flames were completely outside of Xiaoyan's control. If it was not because of Xiaoyan's frightening spiritual strength, it was likely that he would have difficulty succeeding. The difficult first step of the merger process was finally completed. Xiaoyan extended his hand and beckoned. The purifying demonic lotus flame and the god flame were swung over. These 2 types of heavenly flames were after all heavenly flames that Xiaoyan had already refined. Hence, there was not the slightest difficulty in merging them. Although he was still a little unfamiliar with the control, it would not be difficult for him to use the angry Buddha lotus flame in the future if he succeeded. A moment later, the 2 clusters of heavenly flames appeared in front of Xiaoyan. Without pausing, Xiaoyan's powerful spiritual strength wrapped around the 2 clusters of heavenly flames. At this moment, even Xiaoyan had great difficulty controlling these 2 clusters of heavenly flames. If he was careless, he would end up being turned into ashes. The 2 clusters of heavenly flames slowly approached each other in Xiaoyan's palm. Their desire to devour each other caused the 2 clusters of heavenly flames to gradually become more intense even though they were under Xiaoyan's control. Grug. The powerful strength of the heavenly flames caused the blood within Xiaoyan's body to churn. Xiaoyan involuntarily spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Fresh blood had just been spat out from Xiaoyan's mouth when the blazing heavenly flame welcomed it with a bang. The bright red blood instantly turned into nothingness. Damn it. If this continues, the consequences will be unimaginable. Xiaoyan forcefully controlled the heavenly flame in his palm. The veins all over his body bulged as he clenched his teeth. A series of creaking sounds came from between his teeth. His forehead was also dripping with sweat. It could be seen just how much pressure Xiaoyan was under. Ah! Emperor Flame melt? With an explosive cry in his heart, Xiaoyan's expression suddenly became ruthless. His entire person became crazy. His hands suddenly clapped together and the heavenly flames in his palms collided with each other. The energy that erupted from the collision between the two types of heavenly flames caused Xiaoyan's arms to tremble involuntarily. A wave of numbness instantly assaulted his heart. His entire body shook as he forcefully dispelled the numbness. The strength in his palm soared once again as his spiritual strength completely wrapped around the heavenly flame in his palm. The powerful heavenly flame continuously swept out. The clothes on Xiaoyan's upper body instantly turned into nothingness. The intense temperature caused even Xiaoyan's heart to feel a wave of scorching heat. In an instant, Xiaoyan's eyes suddenly turned crimson red. A few seals were continuously formed in his hands as the heavenly flames in his palms once again violently slammed together. This wild and ferocious heavenly flame finally slowly stabilized as it did its final fusion in Xiaoyan's palm. Roar! Human! Your destiny has come to an end. Today is the day you die. Die. Ah! Remember, don't ever meet me in your next life. Otherwise, I will destroy you once again. Heavenly wolf howls at the moon. Die. Before the angry Buddha lotus flame appeared, another sky wolf moon howl was once again violently smashed toward Xiaoyan. If this attack were to hit, Xiaoyan would definitely die. At this critical moment, Xiaoyan ceased hesitating. Both of his hands abruptly clenched the heavenly flame in his palm. As the flame shot out, the heavenly flame that had just stabilized once again erupted. Seeing this, Xiaoyan violently bit the tip of his tongue with his teeth. A mouthful of essence blood was spat onto the heavenly flame. The seals in his hands swiftly changed as he forcefully stabilized the angry Buddha lotus flame. The brutal aura was violently suppressed within the fire lotus. The fusion of the heavenly flame was finally completed. The abundant do qi within Xiaoyan's body once again became empty. At this moment, the white light pillar, which contained an even more destructive aura than before, finally arrived in front of Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan did his best to focus his attention on the light pillar. The waves of weakness that were emitted from his body caused him to feel a little giddy. His entire body, which was standing high in the sky, was also a little shaky. At this moment, Xiaoyan felt as though his spirit was no longer under his control. His teeth violently bit the tip of his tongue. The intense pain that was transmitted from his nerves caused Xiaoyan to temporarily recover. He used all his strength to control the fire lotus in his palm. The fire lotus was formed. A faint cream-white flame seedling danced and rotated on the lotus leaves. The current angry Buddha lotus flame was already very different on the surface compared to before. From the inside to the outside, the fire lotus was divided into 4 layers. Based on their color, they were cream-white, dense white, pink, and black. Looking at it this way, there was not much change compared to before. However, just how strong it was could only be determined in the upcoming battle. In an instant, the white light pillar was already only a couple of feet away from Xiaoyan. At this moment, the vision high in the sky had already been greatly expanded. Luo Jin, who was on the ground, could not help but be greatly alarmed in his heart when he saw this scene. He hurriedly shouted toward Xiaoyan. "Brother Yanxiao, it's dangerous. Dodge quickly." Xiaoyan turned his head and smiled at Luo Jin when he heard this. Immediately, he turned back and gathered all the strength in his body onto his arms. Xiaoyan's eyes were indifferent as he looked at the white light pillar that was close at hand. The corners of his mouth curled into a smile. Immediately, both of his hands pushed forward with great force. "Go, angry Buddha lotus flame. Let him witness the strength of the merger of 4 peak, heavenly flames. I may not lose this battle." The cloud-splitting wolf let out a cold beast roar when he saw this. It was as though he was expressing the disdain in his heart. It was merely a small fire lotus. To him, it did not even have any meaning to attack. How could it hurt him? It was merely a joke. With regards to this, Xiaoyan chose to ignore it. As for how strong it was, he would naturally find out after a while. Xiaoyan's body suddenly became weak after the fire lotus was pushed forward. He staggered and nearly fell from the sky. This scene caused Luo Jin to be extremely anxious. The drifting fire lotus did not appear to possess any threatening intent. However, from the point that the area where it passed turned into an endless empty space, the interior of this seemingly harmless fire lotus possessed a frightening might that could shake the world. The fire lotus and the white light pillar suddenly collided. The wild and violent explosion that should have occurred did not appear. On the contrary, it was an invisible battle between the two. However, ever since the fire lotus made contact with the light pillar, the heart of the cloud-splitting wolf was replaced by an endless fear. The disdain and cold smile from earlier had completely disappeared at this moment. All that was left was a terrified heart. No, 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 impossible. The strength of this fire lotus, how is it possible? It has already reached the high level of the man-class Do technique. High-level man-class Do technique. Just the word high level was already sufficient to cause most people to be shocked. What did a high-level man-class Do technique represent? It was the existence at the peak of the man-class Do techniques. A high-level man-class Do technique could destroy mountains and rivers with one strike, destroy the world with one strike. This was the might of a high-level man-class Do technique. Normally speaking, any practitioner who possessed a high-level man-class Do technique would have an unwritten rule restricting them. That was that they were not allowed to randomly use a high-level man-class Do technique. If they insisted on using it, they must do so in the endless empty space. Otherwise, they would be forcefully restrained by a strong person and lose their freedom. Even their memories regarding the Do technique would be wiped away. Therefore, there would naturally be no one who was willing to do so. Hence, they would abide by this unwritten rule. From this, one could see just how frightening a high-level man-class Do technique was, that even the strong people of the continent would do their best to suppress it. Luo Jin looked at the beautiful fire lotus. His heart was also extremely shaken. Xiaoyan's strength had repeatedly struck his heart. Set after set of man-class Do techniques, the protection of the fire spirit, and the favor of the heavenly flame. This kind of status was really enough to deal a blow to others. Who the hell is this guy? Even those 3 clans have never heard of such a strong younger generation member. He is really a monster. Xiaoyan's endless tactics had already caused Luo Jin to be somewhat numb. The corner of his mouth twitched violently a couple of times. His face was stupefied as he looked at Xiaoyan. In his heart, he had already made up his mind. No matter what, he could not use common sense when facing Xiaoyan in the future. Otherwise he would really be frightened to death. The white light pillar continued to break apart in front of the angry Buddha lotus flame. Immediately, it disappeared into the sky. The fire lotus ignored the existence of the white light pillar and directly penetrated it, drifting toward the enormous body of the cloud-splitting wolf. Roar. No. Human. Sir, you can't do this. A high-level man-class Do technique must be used in the air and cannot be used in this world. If you do this, you will be chased to death by the strong people of the continent. If you want to live, you should quickly stop. If this is the case, I am also willing to turn weapons of war into gifts of jade and silk with you. You can take the Heavenly Imperial Demon Flower, Heavenly Imperial Jade Essence, and Falling Flame Mysterious Iron. I will also allow you and your friend to leave. From now on, we will not know each other and live our own lives. Are you willing? At this moment, the cloud-splitting wolf's heart was finally alarmed. The strength of the angry Buddha lotus flame caused him, an 8-star Ban Emperor, to have no choice but to lower his head to Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan's body swayed slightly. However, the corner of his mouth was lifted into a cold smile. Forget about the fact that he was currently unable to withdraw the angry Buddha lotus flame. Even if he had the ability, why would he do so? Could it be because of the unwritten rule of the continent? So it's like this. I am also a little tempted after hearing this. The cloud-splitting wolf's heart involuntarily moved when he heard Xiaoyan's words. A glint flickered in his eyes. As long as Xiaoyan was able to withdraw this fire lotus, the cloud-splitting wolf was confident that he could kill Xiaoyan in an instant. At that time, forget about the Heavenly Imperial Jade Essence. Even the things on Xiaoyan's body would belong to him. However, just as this thought flashed across his mind, the cold smile on Xiaoyan's face became increasingly dense. His pale face carried a playful smile as Xiaoyan continued to speak. It's a pity? Oh? What's a pity? The cloud-splitting wolf took the opportunity to ask. Xiaoyan continued. Once the angry Buddha lotus flame is unleashed, it cannot be withdrawn. Destroying everything is its final outcome. Therefore, please accept it. Before his voice sounded, the cloud-splitting wolf's expression had already been replaced by endless fury and killing intent. You tricked me. Xiaoyan did not pay any attention to this. With a thought, a sentence drifted out from his mouth. Angry Buddha lotus flame explode. Time admits that this book is lacking in many areas. The content is not rich enough and the plot is not perfect. The fighting and dialogue plots, the psychological activities of the characters, the changes in their expressions and so on. Time can only say, "I'm sorry everyone." But on the other hand, Time really wants to present this story to the end because there are many ideas in it. I hope that the cause of the story can be presented to everyone in this book. Time has already said that many old characters will appear. Ziyin and the little fairy doctor, who are mentioned in the first chapter, are indispensable. Of course, it's up to you whether Kai Lin wants to continue. There are many opportunities to set up characters. You can also recommend characters that you have in mind. Time will work hard to present them to everyone. In the end, I hope that everyone can give up a recommendation ticket in your hands. After all, this book cannot be signed. Time can only work harder with everyone's votes. In addition, Time has one more thing to say. My friend's book is also very good. Battle Through the Firmament, The Legend of the Great Thousand World, is also very popular. I hope everyone will like it. Chapter 80. Angry Buddha Lotus Flame Explode. It was a light sentence. There were only a few words, but in an instant, it caused the entire world to rumble and tremble violently. The empty space within a radius of 5,000 kilometers shattered. The mountains and rivers were destroyed. All life was turned into nothingness. The endless mountains and rivers were also shattered like a mirror in an instant. In merely an instant, the entire place disappeared from this space. The unusual natural phenomenon that was created by the sky wolf howling moon also shattered with a loud bang. Everything had turned into the most primitive darkness. Luo Jin, who was standing on the ground, had already flown into the empty space. At this moment he had clearly used all his strength to unleash his trump card. In merely a couple of breaths' time, he had arrived beside Xiaoyan. Bang! Within the empty space, the outer layer of the washbasin-sized fire lotus, which was a layer of dark black like nothingness, finally appeared to be unable to endure the continuous trembling of this space. It gently fell down and broke off from the entire lotus flower. This scene caused the cloud-splitting wolf, which had originally lost all of its life aura, to instantly regain its senses. Its scarlet eyes, which had dimmed, abruptly shot out a ray of light. Ha 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 ha. I originally thought that this was a frightening high-level Mando technique. It turns out that it is merely a failed product with an empty appearance. Ha 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 ha. You bold human actually dared to deceive me time and time again. See if I don't completely destroy you today and turn you into ashes. I will take revenge for the hatred in my heart. The temperature of the entire space suddenly fell when these sharp and vicious words were emitted. It caused one to feel a chill. It also allowed one to feel the viciousness of this cloud-splitting wolf. The change of the angry Buddha lotus flame also caused Xiaoyan's heart to involuntarily tremble. The angry Buddha lotus flame, that he had spent a great deal of effort in order to succeed, had really scattered in such a casual manner. However, the next moment, the dark black lotus petals began to revolve around the fire lotus after all of them fell. Its speed became increasingly faster. In merely a couple of breaths, it had already surpassed the speed of sound. Within the space, there were some invisible black light spots that gathered toward the fire lotus. Unknowingly, Xiaoyan also felt a very strange feeling in his heart. A trace of his spiritual strength was being drawn out uncontrollably. Although it was forcefully extracted, Xiaoyan did not feel the slightest bit of pain. It was as if the spiritual strength was released from his body by itself. As Xiaoyan's spiritual strength left his body, endless black light spots gathered at the center of the fire lotus. Mixed within them was a trace of Xiaoyan's spiritual strength. The strange energy continued to change within the fire lotus. This scene caused Xiaoyan and the cloud-splitting wolf to be somewhat entranced. This was the first time they had seen a Do skill not explode after being used. Even so, no one present dared to act rashly. Who knew if this thing would suddenly explode? At that time, no one would be able to escape. Only Luo Jin's still pale face had become somewhat solemn. His eyes would occasionally drift toward Xiaoyan by the side. His heart was filled with shock. This was because the current situation was the time when a Do skill transformed into a spirit and formed the will of its creator's soul. Once this step was completed, this human-class Do skill would be the true pinnacle creation. It was common knowledge that once a human-class Do skill was used, it would agglomerate the spiritual illusionary figure of its creator. On one hand, it would increase the strength of the Do skill. On the other hand, it could be considered a memorial to the predecessors. However, not every human-class Do skill could possess this spiritual illusionary figure. This was because if the creator's ability was insufficient, it would be impossible to agglomerate that illusionary figure. Hence, although there were many human-class Do skills, there were very few true human-class Do skills. How could it be so easy to create a pinnacle Do skill? If one did not have sufficient talent and willpower, it was likely that one would not be able to create a true human-class Do skill regardless of how strong one was. This fellow is a little exaggerated. At this moment even the corner of Luo Jin's mouth twitched involuntarily. The gaze he used to look at Xiaoyan was like he was looking at a monster. A moment later, the black-colored light spot within the fire lotus gradually stabilized. Xiaoyan's and the cloud-splitting wolf's expressions were startled when they looked at it from a distance. The shape that the light spot had stabilized was surprisingly a human-shaped illusory figure. Just as he was about to open his mouth and ask Luo Jin by the side, the expression on Xiaoyan's face changed once again. In an instant, the gaze he used to look at the human-shaped illusionary figure had also changed. In Xiaoyan's eyes, the human-shaped illusionary figure was surprisingly his own appearance. This is... Xiaoyan's expression suddenly changed. The shock in his heart actually caused him to be unable to express his words clearly. Luo Jin by the side helplessly smiled. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly. He used an envious gaze to look at Xiaoyan. His tone completely revealed his current mood. That's a Do skill spirit transformation. Only now can your Do skill be considered a genuine high human class Do skill. His voice was not loud. However, it caused the expressions of Xiaoyan and the cloud-splitting wolf to instantly change. There was naturally no need to say anything more about Xiaoyan. His face was filled with excitement. The current him could finally be considered a grandmaster. As for the cloud-splitting wolf, the aura that had just recovered was instantly extinguished by Luo Jin's words, like a red-hot piece of iron that was suddenly thrown into ice water. Do skill spirit transformation. No, I can't accept this. It's absolutely impossible. How could a human like you, who has just advanced to a 3-star half-emperor, be able to create a Do skill spirit transformation? Impossible. This must be a lie that you purposely made up because you don't have the confidence to kill me in one strike. It's all in order to deceive me and make me lose confidence. After which, you'll borrow this already failed human class Do skill to kill me in one strike. Am I right? How could your tricks deceive me, a grand 8-star half-emperor? Wanting to kill me is simply wishful thinking. Under the fierce bombardment of the Do skill spirit transformation, the cloud-splitting wolf's heart was actually forcefully suppressed. It gradually became intense and crazy. In its heart, it continued to imagine the glory when it killed Xiaoyan and Luo Jin. However, it did not know that reality was reality. Regardless of how much it did not believe in its heart, the cloud-splitting wolf would not be able to escape death today. What's wrong? You're not confident now that I've guessed correctly? Come. Do skill spirit transformation. Peak of a high human class Do skill. Come and kill me. If it's not enough, I'll just turn into a human again. As it laughed crazily, the cloud-splitting wolf once again turned into a human. Its arms were wide open and its face was filled with an insufferably crazy appearance. It caused people who saw it to involuntarily emit a disdainful sneer. Xiaoyan and Luo Jin also involuntarily shook their heads. With such a mental state, it was likely that even if they really let him off, this would be the end of it in this life. The corner of Luo Jin's mouth twitched slightly. He once again glanced at Xiaoyan by the side. His expression was somewhat unnatural. Immediately, he glanced at Yun Lang, who had already become crazy, and involuntarily sighed in his heart. It is really unexpected that someone has already been frightened to the point of becoming crazy by this fellow after just getting acquainted with him. I really don't know how to interact with him in the future. Xiaoyan coldly smiled. A thought flashed across his heart. The fire lotus that was suspended in the air suddenly hurriedly rushed toward the cloud-splitting wolf. On the other hand, Xiaoyan quietly stood on the spot, watching everything that was about to happen. Bang! A powerful air wave that could destroy the empty space suddenly swept apart. A thought passed through Xiaoyan's mind and the air wave automatically separated from Luo Jin. However, that frighteningly high temperature still caused Luo Jin's heart to be extremely afraid. Before the first wave of air dissipated, another wave of air swept out in all directions from the center of the explosion. Everywhere it passed, the earth turned into an endless abyss. Beyond the clouds, the scorching sun that hung in the sky was like an old light bulb, dim and lightless. The sunlight that was originally enough to illuminate the entire sky also seemed to have plunged into an endless abyss, and was nowhere to be seen. The pitch-black space looked even more deep and empty. This world had already completely deviated from the Yuanwu continent. Everything belonged to another world. Nothingness, deathly stillness as if it was chaos. Boom! The hot flame wave suddenly swept past the bodies of Xiaoyan and Luo Jin. This was merely the explosion of the third level. However, at this moment, only Xiao Yan's and Luo Jin's auras remained within a 5,000-kilometer radius. As the raging flame blasted past, a powerful pressure that could shake the heaven and earth suddenly pressed down from this side of the world. Not good. Luo Jin, be careful. Although Xiao Yan was unaffected, Luo Jin was instantly smashed down by the pressure. Even with Xiao Yan's warning, it was of no use. In the face of absolute power, there was no such thing as being careful. Given Luo Jin's heavily injured body, if not for the fact that the ground below had already turned into an abyss, just the pressure alone would have been enough to instantly crush him into nothingness. Xiao Yan naturally wanted to resist this pressure and protect Luo Jin. Unfortunately, the strength of this pressure was no longer something that Xiao Yan could control as he pleased. Even as its owner, it was impossible for him to completely control this angry Buddha lotus flame with his current strength. Being able to prevent himself from being affected was already the best outcome for Xiao Yan after he had gained control of the angry Buddha lotus flame. After a couple of flashes, Xiao Yan had already appeared beside the falling Luo Jin. He used one hand to forcefully pull him up. Only then did Xiao Yan apologize to Luo Jin. Brother Luo Jin, I have nearly harmed you. It is unexpected that this angry Buddha lotus flame is still so difficult to control even though it already has my spiritual will. Luo Jin smiled with great difficulty. Given his experience, he was naturally aware of just how powerful a high-level Mando technique was. How could it be so easy for Xiao Yan to completely control it? Boom. The two of them had just spoken when the final layer of the lotus core exploded in the empty space hundreds of thousands of feet high. An endless pressure that surpassed the vast and mighty suddenly arrived above the heads of the two of them. This attack would definitely not differentiate between you and me. If they were struck, even Xiao Yan would have difficulty escaping death. Before Xiao Yan could react, the ancient pressure that broke the world had already swept over the spot where the two of them were. The endless abyss had also become even deeper. The ending of this chapter might not be very good. I will pay attention to the changes in the future. I hope that everyone will not take offense.